Chapter 1139. Even though there were many heavenly resources growing in the death nest, no one came to collect them. This was because the Heaven Saint Masters, who could be regarded as peak experts in smaller kingdoms, did not dare to set foot in the death nest due to its infamy. Probably only saint rulers had the ability to protect themselves, but they could only wander around the outskirts. They had to be careful, not daring to venture too deep. There was also a legend on the Tianyuan continent that all the plants that grew in the death nest possessed an extremely powerful presence of yin qi and grudges. It was impossible to remove them, and if someone ingested them, there would be no benefits at all. Instead, it would lead to endless problems. As a result, very few people had entered the death nest since ancient times. Only a few powerful holy emperor experts would wander in there from time to time in search of treasures left behind from ancient times. Suddenly, the space several hundred meters above the death nest began to violently distort. A space gate slowly formed, and the clothed Jianqin, the bare-chested Taita, and the black-robed black fish emerged from the space gate. The three of them hovered several hundred meters above the ground as they curiously observed their surroundings. Soon after, they frowned and became stern. There was some surprise in their eyes as well. The death nest really is the greatest land of danger on the Tianyuan continent. We haven't even entered yet, but it's already pressuring me greatly, Jianqin said with a heavy voice. Tai Ta's eyes shone brightly as he constantly scanned the surroundings. He would look at the sky at times and at the death forest enveloped by the huge formation at other times. He said with a heavy voice, "This place is so evil. I seem to feel countless souls wailing." No, that's not right. I also feel like ghostly faces are appearing, constantly baring their fangs at us. They're all malicious spirits. Jianqin, this place is so frightening. As a warring god, Taita's senses were even greater than Jianqin's. He could sense things even more clearly than Jianqin. Mo Tianyin sure is extravagant. He actually created such an evil place single-handedly. Just what is he doing this for? Is it to grow the saint's fruit? Is it really worth it to use the corpses of countless experts to grow a fruit? Blackfish murmured. He was very uneasy inside. Only after personally witnessing the greatest land of danger on the Tianyuan continent did he finally understand how terrifying it was. The yin qi and grudges here are so powerful that they've reached an extremely terrifying level. It's enough to obscure the light of the sun and moon, affecting the surroundings. Just how has Mo Tianyin done this? Is this an ability that has surpassed the Holy Emperor? And that formation, I can actually sense a power that makes even me shiver. This formation can definitely block all the attacks from the Holy Emperor with ease. Probably only existences that have surpassed the Holy Emperor can break through it, Blackfish said with a heavy voice. Jianqin, Heiyu, and Heiyu remained outside for a while before Jianqin said, Taita, Senior Blackfish, let's go in. Let's take a look at the vengeful spirits in there and see just how terrifying they are. Jianqin, Taita, and Blackfish all made their way toward the huge formation. The formation that enveloped the death nest only seemed to exist to trap the things inside. It could not stop outsiders from entering. So Jianqin, Heiyu, and Heiyu passed through the formation without any obstructions and entered the interior of the death nest. As soon as they entered the death nest, the three of them felt their bodies become cold. Yin qi that was several times denser than the yin qi outside invaded them, making Jianqin and the others feel like they had fallen into a cavern of ice. What powerful yin qi! It's enough to kill Earth Saint Masters instantly. Even Heaven's Saint Masters wouldn't dare to stay here for long, Jianqin said. Jianqin, Heiyu, and Heiyu were currently at the edge of a forest. Black mist surged within the forest, constantly churning. The ground was scarlet red, as beautiful as blood, but it was filled with an evil presence. Although the sun shone brightly outside, it was gloomy within the death nest. Visibility was very low. In the forest, the colors of red and black intertwined together. Countless towering ancient trees and dense weeds swayed in the wind. From afar, it looked like ghosts were swaying. Coupled with the whistling of the wind, it was as if ghosts were roaring, making people's hair stand on end. Jianqin, Heiyu, and Heiyu were especially vigilant after coming to this hellish place for the first time, even though they were all powerful. However, the path ahead was filled with unknown dangers, so they did not dare to be careless. Jianqin attempted to expand his soul, but as soon as it did, an abnormally cold presence invaded his soul. It actually caused Jianqin's soul to feel a piercing pain. Even his head became rather dizzy. Jianqin immediately withdrew his soul. He no longer dared to use it. His soul was wondrous, but it was not omnipotent. It would be suppressed in certain special environments. The three of them walked through the gloomy forest as the rolling black mist constantly brushed past them, bringing with it waves of cold presences. It felt like countless pairs of ghostly claws were caressing their bodies. It was hair-raising as goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. At this moment, strands of cold presence surged out from the black mist. They stuck to Jianqin's skin and burrowed into his body. Jianqin sensed it, but he did not resist. Instead, he opened his mind and allowed the cold presence to enter his body. At the same time, a weak pulse of energy appeared beside him. Blackfish and Tai Ta had clearly suffered the same thing as Jianqin. They both circulated their energy and used their supreme energy to wipe out the cold presence that had invaded their bodies. The cold presence invaded Jianqin's flesh and blood, burrowing into his organs before beginning to devour all the life force in Jianqin's body. Jianqin immediately sensed his life force flowing into the cold presence. Looks like that's the effect of the presence. It hides within the body and devours life force. Mingdong's great-grandfather and senior Tianjian entered the death nest before, and in the end, Mingdong's great-grandfather died from the curse of the death nest. Is this the cold presence of the magical beasts? Jianqin thought. With a thought, the life force in his body was immediately pulled back. Afterward, his body trembled slightly. Without using chaotic force, he directly dispersed the cold presence with his tough body. The three of them continued forward. Along the way, they discovered quite a few heavenly resources hidden in the forest. Unfortunately, all of them had been contaminated by the cold presence, making them inedible. They had been wasted for nothing. After advancing for several kilometers, a huge ghost face suddenly emerged from the surging black mist. It opened its black, hole-like mouth and bit towards Jianqin's group. Jianqin, Tai Ta, and Blackfish did not move. They had just arrived, so they had no idea about the dangers. They wanted to use these weak existences to test out their abilities so that they could come up with a foolproof plan. The huge ghost face was completely condensed from the grudges of the dead. It was naturally formed from the boundless grudges of the dead. It was equivalent to a heaven saint master. The ghost face bit down and devoured Jianqin's group. Jianqin's group felt their vision darken. Their vision became so dark that they could not even see their fingers. Afterward, an even more powerful cold presence entered their bodies. Even their souls were invaded by the grudges of the dead. Chapter 1140. The grudges within the death nest surged into the sky. Black mist churned as chilling winds gusted, causing the vegetation to sway and producing ghost-like wails. The death nest was divided into 3 zones. The first zone could threaten saint rulers. Most of the vengeful spirits that appeared there were saint rulers, with a few at the level of the Holy Emperor from time to time. Heaven saint masters had a slim chance of surviving there, and even saint rulers had a chance of dying. The second zone was where Holy Emperor vengeful spirits gathered. There was an extremely small chance for Holy Emperor vengeful spirits to appear there. Only Holy Emperor experts could rampage through there. The third zone was the most terrifying place in the death nest because it was where the Holy Emperor's corpse was buried. It was the home of the Holy Emperor's vengeful spirits. It was extremely terrifying, and even great perfection, Holy Emperor experts needed to be careful in the third zone. Although the Holy Emperor's vengeful spirits were condensed from the grudges of the dead and no longer possessed the strength they possessed when they were alive, they were still not easy to deal with. They were extremely powerful. Jianqin, Taita, and Black Fish moved through the death nest, directly making their way to the depths. Along the way, they came across many ghostly faces formed from the grudges of the dead. The chilling presence that invaded their bodies appeared frequently as well, but it was unable to stop Jianqin, Taita, and Heiyu. After traveling several dozen kilometers, a blurry figure condensed from black mist appeared several hundred meters away from Jianqin, Taita, and Heiyu. It sat there as it breathed in and out the grudges of the dead in the surroundings. It absorbed the essence from the ground to cultivate. The essence came from the ground that had been dyed red by the blood of countless emperors. Jianqin, Heiyu, and Heiyu stopped. They stared at the vengeful spirit from several hundred meters away. After staring at it for a while, Taita's deep voice rang out. That vengeful spirit's strength has already reached the level of the Holy Emperor. I never thought that we'd come across such a powerful, vengeful spirit in the first zone so soon. If other saint rulers encountered this vengeful spirit, it would probably be very difficult for them to survive. Looks like the vengeful spirit is cultivating here. That's unbelievable. Since they're condensed from the grudges of the dead, they can actually cultivate. Don't tell me they already possess their own consciousness? Jianqin was amazed. He found what he was seeing rather unbelievable. In the next moment, Jianqin used the illusory flash, quickly flying toward the Holy Emperor's vengeful spirit several hundred meters away. At the same time, the cultivating vengeful spirit discovered Jianqin as well. It suddenly sat up on the boulder. It was completely condensed from the black mist and the grudges of the dead, so its body seemed rather illusionary. The vengeful spirit's appearance was blurry. It seemed like a human without any facial features. It turned its head in Jianqin's direction and immediately drifted toward Jianqin as a cloud of black mist. It moved extremely quickly. Although the vengeful spirit possessed the strength of a holy emperor, it was not as powerful as a holy emperor. Jianqin engaged in a great battle with the vengeful spirit. At the same time, he began to study the vengeful spirit that knew how to cultivate. A while later, Jianqin finally confirmed that the vengeful spirits did not possess their own consciousness. Their cultivation was completely based on instinct, which allowed him to let out a sigh of relief. If the vengeful spirits all possessed their own consciousness, it would be far too terrifying. After all, there were many holy emperors, vengeful spirits, in the third zone of the death nest. Jianqin hacked the vengeful spirit to pieces with his emperor armament, turning it back into black mist. However, the next moment, it condensed again and continued to battle with Jianqin. The suffocating cold presence and the grudges of the dead turned into a terrifying attack. The cold presence invaded Jianqin's body in an attempt to devour Jianqin's vitality, while the grudges of the dead charged toward Jianqin's soul. However, it was unable to affect him at all. The vengeful spirits were extremely difficult to kill. They were condensed from the grudges of the dead, so they did not possess life or the weakness of a soul like humans. Without any exaggeration, the vengeful spirits were unkillable existences. The only way to break free from them was to constantly kill them and exhaust their energy. Once they ran out of energy, they would turn back into a part of the black mist in the death nest. Jianqin's gaze was sharp. He was emotionless as he killed the vengeful spirit time and time again with his emperor armament. Only after killing the vengeful spirit over a dozen times did he finally exhaust its energy, turning it back into black mist and fusing with the surroundings. Jianqin, the energy you use, is different from ordinary energy. Using this energy to deal with the vengeful spirits will speed up their deaths. If other Holy Emperor experts encountered the vengeful spirit, they would probably struggle to deal with it in such a short amount of time, said Blackfish. He currently stood with Taita with his hands behind his back. Jianqin sank into his thoughts before stowing the emperor armament away. He continued on his way with Blackfish and the others. There were very few vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor in the first zone of the Death Nest. Most of them were saint rulers. Jianqin, Heiyu, and Taita did not come across any vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor for the rest of their journey. After traveling several thousand kilometers, they finally passed through the first zone and entered the second zone. The cold presence and the grudges of the dead were 10 times more powerful than the first zone. The cold presence ate away at their bodies while the grudges invaded their souls, forcing Jianqin, Heiyu, and Taita to circulate their energy to resist. Jianqin had already fused a small portion of the chaotic body into his body, allowing him to unleash a portion of the terrifying defense of the chaotic body. A faint layer of golden light appeared around Taita as well, keeping the cold presence and grudges of the dead at bay. Even Blackfish began to use his own energy to resist. Jianqin, Heiyu, and Taita were rather surprised when they came to the second zone for the first time. Just the yin qi and grudges of the dead were enough for a holy emperor to take them seriously, which made them sigh in amazement at how terrifying the death nest was. Some bones and fragments of weapons began to appear in the second zone. The bones all bore the marks of time, clearly having existed for countless years. The fragments of weapons were all forged from extremely precious materials, but they had already been invaded by the yin qi and grudges of the dead, so they were filled with a demonic nature. They were not suitable for a second use. This is the bone of a dragon expert. Suddenly, Blackfish stared at a piece of bone the size of a person nearby. His voice was filled with shock. With that, Jianqin and Taita both forgot about it. They only saw that it was a piece of bone from an unknown location. It was completely red, as if it had been dyed red by blood. The dragon clan vanished during the ancient times. It's been 1,000,000 years since then. This piece of bone was clearly left behind before the dragon clan vanished. Logically speaking, it should have turned to dust long ago after so much time has passed. How could it still exist today and be so well preserved? Blackfish said with a heavy voice. He was filled with disbelief. This piece of bone is already filled with yin, qi, and grudges. Is it because of these two powers that the bone remains so well preserved after 1,000,000 years? Jianqin guessed. Blackfish thought about it carefully and said, that should be the case. If that's the case, doesn't that mean there are still many bones left behind from the ancient times in the Death Nest? Chapter 1141. The second zone of the Death Nest was much more dangerous than the first zone. All the vengeful spirits roaming there possessed the strength of a holy emperor. The weaker ones were at the first heavenly layer of holy emperor, while the more powerful ones had even reached great perfection. Basically, all the vengeful spirits at the holy emperor level would cultivate by instinct, absorbing the boundless grudges and strands of essence from the earth. Although they did not possess consciousness, their strength was unquestionable. Jianqin, Heiyu, and Heiyu swaggered through the second zone, making their way to the depths in a straight line. All the vengeful spirits they came across along the way were dealt with by Jianqin. His chaotic force posed a greater threat to the vengeful spirits than Saint Force. It could increase the time it took for the vengeful spirits to disperse. So he killed the vengeful spirits much faster than Blackfish. It was not that Blackfish was weaker than Jianqin, but that the energy within him was on the same level as Saint Force on the Tianyuan continent, despite being a holy emperor at great perfection. He lacked the special effects of the chaotic body. Jianqin slowly put away his emperor armament after defeating a vengeful spirit in the messy forest. This was the 16th vengeful spirit on the level of the holy emperor that he had defeated in the second zone. However, at this moment, a gust of chilling wind whistled by. 6 figures slowly appeared in the dense black mist several thousand meters away. They fused with the black mist as they gently drifted through the air. They rode the black, mist toward Jianchen's group. Another 6. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly tightened his grip on the Emperor armament. Just when he wanted to charge up and fight the 6 vengeful spirits, a golden light flashed past him. Tai Ta, who was enveloped in a golden light, charged toward the vengeful spirits. At the same time, his deep voice rang out, "Jianchen, rest for a while. Let me deal with them. I can deal with them." Jianchen nodded slightly with that. He did not charge up the mountain. Instead, he stood where he was and observed the battle between Tai Ta and the vengeful spirits. Tai Ta was no longer the ignorant person he used to be. After absorbing the droplet of essence blood that Regis had left behind on Dragon Island, Tai Ta possessed the strength to contend with Holy Emperor experts. He had reached the middle level of the Holy Emperor realm. A golden axe appeared in Tai Ta's hand. He gripped it with both hands and yelled out, "Mysteries of war, destruction!" With that, the golden light around Tai Ta shone brightly. The dazzling light enveloped Tai Ta. At the same time, a supreme battle intent filled the surroundings, actually dispersing quite a lot of the yin qi and grudges that filled the area. Tai Ta's presence reached its peak in a single moment. At that moment, he seemed to have become a god of war, an invincible god of war that existed for battle. Suddenly, the battle axe in Tai Ta's hand turned into a devastating streak of golden light that slashed towards the 6 vengeful spirits. The battle axe and Tai Ta's aura merged into one, resonating with the battle intent that filled the surroundings. There seemed to be some sort of profound mystery that came from the world. The dazzling axe did not land on the vengeful spirits. Instead, it landed 5 meters away from them. Immediately, the space there began to shake violently. An extremely powerful, invisible energy flashed through the space there, and in the next moment, the vengeful spirits actually collapsed on their own. They turned into a dense, black mist that drifted through the air. A sliver of shock flashed through Jianchen's eyes when he saw this. Although he knew that Tai Ta had become extremely powerful, he had never thought that he would be this powerful. The vengeful spirits were below the 5th and 4th heavenly layers of the Holy Emperor. They were nowhere near as powerful as they were when they were alive, but they were still difficult to deal with. However, Tai Ta had managed to kill 6 powerful vengeful spirits with a single swing of his axe. This had completely exceeded his expectations. The 6 vengeful spirits that Tai Ta had dispersed condensed once more before lunging at Tai Ta without any fear. Mysteries of war, destruction. Tai Ta wielded his axe with both hands and unleashed the same attack. The vengeful spirits were as fragile as tofu, dispersed once more. Every time the vengeful spirits died, some of their power would disperse. Only after being dispersed around a dozen times by Tai Ta did the 6 vengeful spirits finally lose all their power. They could no longer reform, turning into a dense, black mist that revolved around Tai Ta. They attempted to invade Tai Ta's body and soul with their cold presence and grudges, but they were all stopped by Tai Ta's faint, golden light. At this moment, extremely powerful yin qi and grudges suddenly appeared. It easily broke through the defenses of Jianchen, Tai Ta and invaded their bodies. The yin qi and grudges were several times more powerful than the Holy Emperor's vengeful spirits, perhaps even over a dozen times more powerful. Jianchen, Tai Ta immediately felt their bodies turn cold. The yin qi that invaded their bodies seemed to have frozen their lives. The grudges made their souls ache when they entered their heads. Jianchen, Blackfish, and Tai Ta's faces all changed slightly. They circulated the energy within them without holding back at all, and only then did they finally purge the invading yin qi and grudges. They immediately turned around. Behind them, a tall demonic figure had appeared silently. His body was more than 10 meters tall. Although his body was formed by resentment, it was extremely solid. It was simply a physical body. His facial features were clear. He was a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s. His face was resolute, and his features were chiseled. However, his eyes were pitch black. He wore robes completely condensed from grudges, and he wore a cloak on his back. He seemed extraordinarily mighty. Although he just stood there silently, he radiated with an invisible pressure, pressuring Jianqin and Taita, the Holy Emperor. Jianqin cried out. His heart trembled violently. He actually felt like he could not defeat the demonic figure before him. Taita arrived before Jianqin and stared at the demonic figure sternly. However, his eyes lit up very soon. He cried out, "Gustis, he's Gustis." "Taita, what's Gustis?" Jianqin asked with a heavy voice. He was extremely confused. Chapter 1142. Jianqin and Blackfish immediately became extremely stern after learning about the vengeful spirit's origins from Taita. The vengeful spirit that possessed a physical body actually possessed such a great background when he was alive. He was known as the greatest of the Holy Emperor, so his strength was unquestionable. Even though he had turned into a vengeful spirit, he was probably an extremely powerful, vengeful spirit. Taita clearly had not realized that danger had arrived. He stared at Gusty's huge figure with some excitement and said, "Senior Gustis, do you still remember the past?" "Taita, this is no longer the greatest of the Holy Emperor, Gustis. He's a vengeful spirit condensed from the grudges of the dead," Jianqin said with a heavy voice. Taita quickly calmed down. He stared at Gusty's huge figure in a daze. He knew the origins of the death nest extremely well. He knew that Gustis was no longer the greatest of the Holy Emperor in Ruijin's memories. He was a vengeful spirit. Gustis stood there silently. He was emotionless and he seemed cold. He did not respond to Taita's words at all, as if he could not hear Taita at all. Suddenly, Gustis moved. He launched his most powerful attack, directly throwing a punch at Heiyu. The punch seemed simple and straightforward, but it was filled with devastating, terrifying power. With a single punch, it was enough to cause mountains and rivers to collapse and the ground to crack. It was enough to make the world pale in comparison. With Gusty's punch, all the grudges in the surroundings were affected. They began to tremble violently, as if dragons were churning in there. His method of attack was different from regular, vengeful spirits. He seemed to possess some battle techniques from when he was alive. The simple punch was filled with terrifying might. "Retreat!" Blackfish called out. He had never been so stern before. He felt that facing the vengeful spirit before him was even more difficult than facing the Holy Emperor of the humans and Holy Emperor of the magical beasts. After all, Gustis was just far too powerful when he was alive. Even in the ancient times when there were many holy emperors, he was able to dominate everyone and become the greatest among them. At the same time, Blackfish immediately threw out a punch as well. Against the powerful, vengeful spirit of the Holy Emperor, Blackfish dared not hold back at all. He used all his strength as a holy emperor at great perfection without holding back at all. Blackfish's original form was a mutated crocodile god, which was similar to beasts of antiquity. Beasts of antiquity were stronger than regular magical beasts, and regular magical beasts were stronger than experts of the same level. As a result, Blackfish's punch was much more powerful than the full-powered strike of a holy emperor at great perfection. Bang! When the two fists collided, a muffled sound immediately rang out. Violent ripples of energy rapidly shot out in all directions from their fists, causing the soil to fly into the air and the ground to crack. The surging aura of resentment in the surroundings was completely driven away by the powerful ripples of energy. A vacuum actually appeared in the death nest with the black mist from their attacks. Jianqin and Taita both trembled violently. Even with their strength, they found it difficult to stand firm in the violent shockwaves of energy. Jianqin was shocked by this. He had met many holy emperor at great perfection. The great elder of the Yuan sect, Yangzi, who had dealt with him in the past, was a holy emperor at great perfection. Compared to Yangzi and Blackfish, there was quite a large difference between the two of them. However, Blackfish was actually blown away after exchanging a punch with Gusties. He smashed into a tough rock several hundred meters away. On the other hand, Gusties did not move at all. He remained where he was. Jianchen was shocked. Gusties was abnormally powerful. He had actually sent Blackfish flying so easily. He found it rather unbelievable. He knew that Gusties was extremely powerful when he was still alive, but he was only a vengeful spirit right now. He was no longer as powerful as he was in the past, yet he still possessed such terrifying strength. It was startling. Holy Emperor is definitely not his opponent, not even great perfection. Only a Holy Emperor can take on Gusties. Jianchen quickly came to a conclusion. He Yu raised his head and let out a long roar. He turned into a black streak of light and flew over from the distance. Although he was in a sorry state, his aura was like a rainbow. His battle intent was even higher now. There was no fear on his face at all, only high spirits and fighting spirit, an incomparably powerful energy. Fluctuations spread out. This energy was extremely terrifying. As soon as it appeared, the yin qi and resentment that were wreaking havoc in the death nest quieted down. The thick black fog around He Yu's body was rapidly pushed back. A snow-white machete had appeared in Blackfish's hand. He wielded the machete with a single hand as he engaged in a great battle with Gusties. He swung his machete wildly, and every single strike was powerful enough to swallow mountains and rivers. This was a weapon with origin energy. With the machete in hand, Blackfish seemed to have become a true Holy Emperor, directly taking on Gusties. As he swung his machete, he directly dispersed Gusties' earth-shaking punch. Without slowing down at all, he continued to swing his machete at Gusties, cleaving him in half. Gusties was no longer as powerful as before an origin energy weapon. Origin energy was a great power in another domain. It was not something that any power in this world could rival. Even a true Holy Emperor would not dare to take on such power, let alone Gusties, who had been condensed from the grudges of the dead. Gusties, too, halves reassembled in a single moment. He did not seem to be injured at all. Afterwards, he threw out another punch. This punch was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. With a single punch, it caused the space to shatter and turn into darkness. He Yu wielded his machete and swung it decisively. It was simple and straightforward, and it split Gusties' fist open with a single strike. Before an origin energy weapon, Gusties, who should have been extremely powerful, had become so puny. Boom! Suddenly, Gusties' huge figure exploded. He turned into an extremely powerful black mist that surged toward Blackfish, completely enveloping him. At the same time, powerful yin qi and grudges that made even Blackfish's face change invaded his body. The yin qi was so dense that even the energy defenses around him were unable to resist it. It rapidly seeped into his body and began to devour all of his life force. At the same time, the extremely pure grudges invaded his soul as well, causing him to feel piercing pain. Blackfish bellowed out. The origin energy armor immediately appeared, completely isolating him from the invading grudges. A thumb-sized orb hovered above his head, shining with a hazy light that enveloped Blackfish and protected his soul. With the 3 supreme treasures, Blackfish finally managed to turn the tables around. He was no longer affected at all. Without any worries, He Yu began to attack as hard as he could. The machete in his hand turned into streaks of white light as it slashed through the dense, black mist that Gusties had conjured. With every flash of light, the black mist would disperse slightly. Seeing how it was unable to do anything to Blackfish, the black mist around Blackfish began to churn violently. In the end, it condensed back into Gusties' figure in the distance. He Yu bellowed out furiously. He charged at Gusties aggressively with his origin energy armor and the bead above his head, wielding his machete. This time, Gusties did not continue fighting with Blackfish. With a slight movement, he vanished into the distance as a black blur. He had retreated. Black Fish did not chase after him. He stared in the direction Gustis had vanished in and became stern. Afterwards, the machete, the armor, and the 3 supreme treasures all vanished. He had put them away. "Senior Black Fish, are you all right?" Jianchen and Tai Tao immediately walked over from afar and asked in concern. Black Fish shook his head gently and said with a heavy voice, "Fortunately, I have the 3 origin energy treasures, or I definitely wouldn't be his opponent. Probably only Rui Jin's secret techniques of the Dragon Clan can match him. This vengeful spirit is just too powerful. He really is worthy of being the greatest of the Holy Emperor in the past." Jianchen, Taita, and Taita all fell silent. Black Fish had failed to destroy Gustis' vengeful spirit even after using the 3 supreme treasures. In the end, the vengeful spirit had managed to escape so easily. The vengeful spirit's strength had reached an unbelievable level. It could threaten the life of the Holy Emperor at great perfection. Just how many people in the world could contend against it? Chapter 1143. Let's hope that's the case. If there are many vengeful spirits as powerful as Gustis, we'll probably only be able to protect ourselves even if Ruijin, Honglian, and I work together, Blackfish said with a heavy voice. Gustis' appearance gave him a sliver of pressure. The 3 of them continued on their way, making their way to the 3rd zone. They were attacked by many vengeful spirits along the way, and they were all at the Holy Emperor's level. Vengeful spirits at the Holy Emperor's level were extremely rare. They did not see a second one aside from Gustis. Along the way, Genshin's group would come across a few skeletons left behind from ancient times. They had already been corroded by the yin qi and grudges of the dead, which was why they had been preserved until now. After traveling over 1,000 kilometers, Genshin's group finally arrived at the end of the 2nd zone. Yin qi surged several thousand meters in front of them as black mist churned violently. It would conjure ghostly faces from time to time, as if they were baring their fangs at Genshin's group. They would produce wails and howls. This was the depths of the Death Nest, the most dangerous zone. It was known as the home of the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor, the place where all the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor gathered. Genshin's group stopped at the boundary between the 2nd and 3rd zones. They stared at the 3rd zone sternly. Before they had even set foot in, they already felt pressured. Just the yin qi and grudges of the dead that filled the 3rd zone was enough to make them feel pressured. The yin qi and grudges of the dead were so powerful that it was frightening. It made Genshin and Taita frown. The 3rd zone is just too terrifying. If Saint Rulers set foot in there, they'd probably only last for a few seconds before dying to the grudges of the dead, Genshin said with a heavy voice. The 3rd zone of the Death Nest could be described as a land of death for Saint Rulers. Even if there were no vengeful spirits there, Saint Rulers would not be able to survive. Only the Holy Emperor can set foot in the 3rd zone, but he needs to circulate his full strength to resist the yin qi and grudges of the dead. This will deplete his energy extremely quickly, so he can't spend too much time there, Blackfish said. Even if that's the case, we still need to go in and find the exact location of the saint's fruit before leaving. We'll go in and take it when it ripens, Genshin said. Determination filled Genshin's mind. He had to go in, no matter how dangerous it was. The saint's fruit only appeared once every 40,000 years. It was the only shortcut to becoming a holy emperor, so he had to obtain the saint's fruit. Genshin, Blackfish, and Taita entered the 3rd zone together. As soon as they set foot in there, a bone-chilling coldness immediately invaded their bodies. At the same time, grudges of the dead that were over a dozen times more powerful than the 2nd zone wormed toward their souls. The grudges of the dead were so powerful that they were no weaker than the grudges of the dead when Gustis had first appeared. The 3 of them were already prepared. They immediately circulated their full strength to cast down a layer of defense around themselves to stop the invasion of the grudges of the dead. Strands of chaotic force surged out from the chaotic Niden in Jianshin's dantian, spreading to every corner of his body. He had fully unleashed the advantages of the chaotic body. At the same time, a layer of black light flowed on Jianshin's body. This was chaotic force swimming on the surface of his skin. Tai Ta was completely enveloped by a dazzling golden light. He seemed to have become a golden cocoon, where only a blurry figure could be seen from the outside. He seemed like a god that had descended into the world. He was extraordinarily mighty. A layer of extremely terrifying energy pulsed on Blackfish as well. The three of them circulated their full strength as soon as they set foot on the third zone. Jianshin let Ruijin and Honglian out. There should be quite a few vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor on the third zone. It's time for our strength to increase, Blackfish said to Jianshin. Jianshin nodded and immediately released the Saint artifact. He let out Blackfish and Honglian from the artifact space. Ruijin and Honglian had been informed by Jianshin in the artifact space, so they knew about their current situation. As a result, the two of them made their preparations as soon as they came out. They used their abilities to fend off the invasion of the grudges of the dead. Ruijin shone with a golden light that enveloped him. He seemed like a second Tai Ta. The only difference was that Ruijin's light was slightly dimmer than Tai Ta's. A layer of scarlet flames rose up around Honglian, causing the surrounding temperature to rapidly rise. Her flames were of the extreme yang attribute. They just so happened to be the nemesis of the grudges of the dead. The moment the flames appeared, the grudges of the dead immediately retreated. They dared not approach Honglian at all. Jianshin, Tai Ta, Blackfish, and Ruijin immediately distanced themselves from Honglian. Although the flames were not a threat to them, being enveloped by such a terrifying temperature for a long period of time was extremely uncomfortable. Stay closer to me. The grudges of the dead around me are thinner. That will reduce your energy expenditure, Honglian said to the people around her. Jianshin and the others looked at each other with that. They could not help but bitterly smile. Tai Ta said in a muffled voice, Senior Honglian, I don't dare to get too close to you. Your flames are making me uncomfortable. It's too hot. The four of them did not move. Although Honglian's flames had weakened under her control, they still did not want to endure the terrifying heat. It was not enough to harm them, but it was still a torment. A smile appeared on the corner of Honglian's lips. She had obviously recovered all her strength to make the flames so powerful. She had reached the great perfection of Saint King again. This was all due to the effects of the divine water of the world. It had completely cured her of the after-effects of using rebirth from flames. Without a doubt, the appearance of Ruijin and Honglian had increased the strength of Jianshin's group by several levels. Even if they were surrounded by the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor in the third zone, they could deal with them with ease. Jianshin did not know where the saint's fruit grew. Poseidon had not told him the exact location either, so he could only search through the third zone. The third zone was the home of the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. There were extremely many vengeful spirits there. Jianshin's group had come across over a dozen vengeful spirits along the way. Although they were nowhere near as powerful as the Holy Emperor, they could not be underestimated. They were all dealt with by Honglian. Flames of Supreme Yang were the nemesis of otherworldly items. With Honglian dealing with the vengeful spirits, she was even more effective than Ruijin. Gradually, Honglian had become the main force of the group. Danger and opportunity existed side by side in the death nest. There were even more bones and weapon fragments there, all left behind by the Holy Emperor. There were even a few damaged pieces of armor and space rings. It was a pity that many of the space rings had been completely destroyed and could not be opened. Jianshin, this space ring doesn't seem to have been completely destroyed. Tai Ta ran over from nearby and passed an old space ring to Jianshin in high spirits. Jianshin accepted the space ring and discovered that it was indeed not completely destroyed. He opened it with great difficulty in the end. This was a space ring worn by the Holy Emperor. It was extremely rich, but unfortunately the aura of resentment had already seeped in, destroying many things and reducing them to ashes. Only a few items made of special materials were preserved. Suddenly, Jianshan's face changed. He pulled out a square stone slab that was 10 meters long from the space ring and examined it carefully. He became overjoyed. "This is a Saint Tier battle skill." Jianshan cried out. He was extremely excited, as if he had discovered some great treasure. Blackfish, Ruijin, and Honglian all gathered over that. They sighed emotionally. This really is a Saint Tier battle skill. Just this item alone is enough for us to gain quite a lot. There was a picture of a person on the stone slab. It was a stalwart person whose back could only be seen. He stood in the sky with his feet on the clouds, looking down on the world like a king. Apart from this picture, there were no other records on the stone slab. This was an unknown Saint Tier battle skill. The figure on the stone slab seemed to be standing there casually, but he gave off the feeling of being in harmony with the world. He possessed an indescribable presence that was vast and boundless. The figure was only a key to unlocking the Saint Tier battle skill. The true Saint Tier battle skill could be said to be hidden within the figure, or it could be said to be hidden within the stone slab. Only when the mind resonated with it would one be brought to another world to comprehend the true Saint Tier battle skill. Saint Tier battle skills were different from regular battle skills. Many Saint Tier battle skills were not recorded in books. Instead, they were passed down from generation to generation through a stone slab. A power from the world was hidden within, allowing the stone slab to last forever and be extremely difficult to destroy. Jianshan was obviously extremely excited after obtaining a Saint Tier battle skill. The Flame Mercenaries already possessed a certain scale now. They had quite a few Heaven Tier cultivation methods and battle skills, but they lacked Saint Tier battle skills. The Saint Tier battle skill he had obtained just happened to make up for this. Aside from that, Jianshan also found a Saint Tier cultivation method in the space ring. The cultivation method was recorded on the fur of Class 9 magical beasts, so it was extremely damaged. Fortunately, there was not a single word missing from it. Unfortunately, there was nothing else in the space ring apart from these two items. Even with that being the case, Jianshan's harvest was extremely great, making him extremely happy. In the blink of an eye, Jianshan's group had already stayed in the depths of the death nest for an entire day. They found a few more space rings during that time, but unfortunately, none of them were usable. They had all been destroyed. Hong Lian had already retracted all the flames around her. She wore the Phoenix clan's greatest treasure, the 9 refined Godfire feather. This was an armor with origin energy, so she used it to block the invasion of the resentful energies. Blackfish and Ruijin had also donned origin energy armor. They no longer used their own energy to block the vile energies. The 3 of them were conserving their energy. There was no energy of the world in the death nest, only endless vile energies and grudges. It was impossible to replenish their energy. Chapter 1144. Jianshan, Ruijin, and the others had already stayed in the depths of the death nest for 3 whole days. During those 3 days, they moved about in an extremely low-key manner, avoiding the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor as much as possible. They did their best to preserve their strength for the final battle. During that time, Jianshan's group came across the vengeful spirit of Gustis once again. It engaged in an intense battle with Honglian, but unfortunately, it was completely suppressed by Honglian's flames. In the end, it was chased away by Honglian's scorching God Fire Hairpin. Even with that being the case, Gusti's strength still amazed Ruijin and the others. If it were not for the origin energy treasure, they would not have been able to do anything to Gustis. They might not even have been his opponent. During those 3 days, Jianshan's group had already traversed half of the 3rd floor, but they still failed to find any traces of the saint's fruit. However, they did find a few shattered space rings, but unfortunately they had all been destroyed, so they did not find anything. Just as Gentian's group passed over a small mountain, their eyes suddenly narrowed. They basically looked in the same direction at the same time. A faint, colorful light flickered in the churning black mist before them. It was extremely weak, but it was extremely dazzling in the mist. The eyes of Gentian's group all shone brightly. They stared at the colorful light that flickered in the mist from time to time. This was the first time they had seen another type of light after coming to the death nest. Without needing anyone to call out to them, they all made their way to where the colorful light had appeared. They were all filled with caution. As they got closer, the colorful light that flashed from time to time in the black fog became brighter and brighter, more and more dazzling. In the end, they finally discovered what the colorful light was. A small tree that was only as tall as a person stood there all by itself. It shone with a dazzling, 5-colored light that enveloped a radius of 1,000 meters. The Yin-Chi and the grudges of the dead were unable to reach it, as if it had formed an independent space. There were 9 leaves on the small tree. Every single one of them shone with a hazy glow, which was quite pretty. The 9 leaves seemed like 9 petals, holding a fist-sized fruit at the center. The fruit was completely red, but it shone with a rainbow light. Vaguely, a profound presence seemed to be hidden within the fruit, containing the truths of the world. The saint's fruit. This should be the saint's fruit. Jian Chen cried out. He was extremely excited. After so many twists and turns, he had finally seen the legendary saint's fruit in the death nest. What a wondrous fruit! It's actually growing in the death nest that's filled with Yin-Chi. Black Fish also sighed in amazement. He found it rather unbelievable. The saint's fruit seemed to be filled with holiness. Logically speaking, a fruit like that should have grown in a blessed land filled with spiritual energy, yet it had grown in the gloomy death nest. This was indeed very unbelievable, almost going against common sense. Mo Tianyin used the corpses of countless experts from ancient times to create the death nest. He used his ability to draw out the essence from the corpses to form this wondrous fruit. What the great method, Ruijin murmured. He was filled with admiration for Mo Tianyin. More accurately speaking, the saint's fruit was created from the essence and blood of those experts. It was originally an extremely evil fruit, yet it seems so divine, as if it really is a saint's fruit. I understand now. Mo Tianyin really is someone with great abilities. He can actually reverse yin and yang. He's using the mysteries of how things can only move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. He's using his supreme ability to change the world and nullify the evil energy within the saint's fruit, turning the evil fruit into a true saint's fruit. It possesses heaven-defying effects and can assist people in breaking through to the level of Holy Emperor. Honglian said as she stared at the fruit in front of her. Her eyes were filled with shock. Ruijin's eyes had already become golden. 2 beams of golden light shone from his eyes as he constantly scanned the surroundings. He had already used a secret technique of the Dragon Clan. Has Mo Tianyin used such a large hand to create this place of despair just to grow the saint's fruit? Ruijin softly murmured. Flames leapt about in Honglian's eyes as well. She also used a secret technique of the Phoenix clan to observe the surroundings. She gradually frowned and said, "On the surface, the death nest does seem to exist to grow the saint's fruit. But from what I've seen, the uses of the death nest are definitely not as simple as they seem." Black Fish and Gentian also frowned when they heard what the 2 of them had said. They originally believed that the death nest existed to grow the saint's fruit, but only after hearing what Ruijin and Honglian had said did they understand that the death nest's existence was probably not as simple as just growing the saint's fruit. Why did Mo Tianyin create this place? What is he trying to do? And what is the deeper purpose of the death nest? Ruijin murmured. The golden light in his eyes had vanished, revealing a pair of spirited eyes. However, They were now filled with great curiosity. Honglian also stopped using her secret technique. She said, "Mo Tianyan really is worthy of being the greatest human expert in the past. I can't see through this place even with the secret technique of the Phoenix clan." The saint's fruit has gained another color. It has 6 colors now, Gentian suddenly said. Everyone gathered their gazes on the saint's fruit once more. Indeed, they discovered that an additional color had appeared on the 9 leaves, becoming 6 colors. However, the fruit was still 7 colors. With the addition of one more color, the light from the saint's fruit became even more intense. It expanded from 1,000 meters to 1,500 meters. At the same time, it gave off a unique fragrance. With a single whiff, the minds of the 4 of them were shaken, and they felt refreshed from their souls. The fragrance from the fruit drifted into the distance, actually attracting the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor in the surroundings. Very soon, several demonic figures walked over from afar, directly entering the region enveloped by the light. In the end, they all sat down 100 meters away from the fruit and began to cultivate. The multicolored light from the fruit did not harm the vengeful spirits, but after absorbing the fragrance from the fruit, their illusionary bodies became even more solid. They had benefited greatly from the fruit. The fragrance from the fruit drifted very far away, attracting many vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. Before long, more and more Holy Emperor vengeful spirits hurried over from all directions, causing more and more vengeful spirits to gather. Jianchen and the others all revealed ugly expressions. With so many Holy Emperor vengeful spirits gathered here, it would without a doubt increase the difficulty of collecting the fruit. Let's retreat and preserve our strength. It's best if we don't come into conflict with these vengeful spirits, Ruijin said to the others through a communication technique, and they immediately retreated silently. However, just when they had retreated several dozen meters, 3 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits appeared before them, blocking their path. Oh no! Jinchen's heart sank. The 3 vengeful spirits had already discovered the 5 of them, so they could not avoid them. Neither side said anything. The 3 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits attacked first. They created a great disturbance, causing the endless vile energies in the death nest to churn violently. Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian went up to receive the vengeful spirits. They all drew their 3 treasures and launched thunderous attacks in an attempt to deal with the 3 vengeful spirits as quickly as possible. The 3 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits were not the opponents of Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu. They dispersed several times very quickly, unable to display their strength before origin energy weapons. Ruijin and the others were not very far from the saint's fruit. Attracted by the fruit, the region had basically become where the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor gathered. The sounds of their battle alerted the other vengeful spirits very quickly, including the vengeful spirits cultivating near the fruit. Chapter 1145. Over 20 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits struck out at the same time, immediately increasing the pressure on Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian. After all, they were not just facing a few vengeful spirits this time. There were a few extremely powerful vengeful spirits among the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. Although they were not as powerful as Gusties, they were not far off. As a result, Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu only managed to gain a slight upper hand after being surrounded by over 20 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits, even with their 3 origin energy treasures. Jianchen and Taita also used their full strength to keep a Holy Emperor vengeful spirit busy in hopes of reducing the burden on Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu. However, the 2 of them were nowhere near as powerful as Ruijin and Taita. They were nowhere near great perfection of the Holy Emperor, so they could only barely keep the vengeful spirits busy after using everything they had. Under the influence of the saint's fruit, more and more Holy Emperor vengeful spirits gathered in the area. They all took part in dealing with Jianchen, Jianqin and Heiyu and Heiyu all faced greater and greater pressure. Jianqin and Tai Ta's opponents went from one holy emperor vengeful spirit to two vengeful spirits. With their strength, they could barely keep a single holy emperor vengeful spirit busy, even if they used their full strength. Now that another one had suddenly appeared, the two of them immediately fell into an extremely bad situation. They both became injured very soon. The golden light from Tai Ta's body had almost been dispersed. The light dimmed, and an extremely pure strand of Yin Qi invaded his body. It rapidly devoured his life force and froze it. Jianqin's chaotic body was injured as well. Blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. His chaotic Naiden spat out strands of chaotic force to resist the Yin Qi that had invaded his body. That was not all. Even his soul was attacked by the grudges, causing him to feel a stabbing pain as well as a strong sense of dizziness. This was the grudges of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. Even though Jianqin's soul was very powerful, he was unable to resist such powerful grudges of the Holy Emperor. More and more vengeful spirits gathered, reaching 50 very soon. Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish all became heavily surrounded as well. They were rather overwhelmed by the attacks of so many Holy Emperor vengeful spirits, so they were unable to deal with Jianqin at all. Even with that being the case, the three of them did their best to attract as many vengeful spirits as possible to reduce the pressure on Jianqin and Tai Ta. Enter the artifact space. Ruijin's voice rang out from the dense, black mist formed by the Holy Emperor's vengeful spirits. Jianqin hesitated when he heard that. The saint artifact was not indestructible. Reaching great perfection of the Holy Emperor was already its limit. Although the vengeful spirits were not as powerful as before, the strength they retained was still not to be underestimated. Jianqin was uncertain whether the saint artifact could withstand the attacks of the vengeful spirits. Bang! With a muffled sound, a Holy Emperor vengeful spirit silently appeared behind Jianqin. It directly threw a punch at Jianqin's back, sending Jianqin flying. This was the third Holy Emperor vengeful spirit that Jianqin had faced. With Jianqin's current strength, he could barely deal with regular Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. 2 was his limit, and he could not last for too long. If a third one appeared, he would definitely die. Jianqin vomited blood as he flew several hundred meters away. Only after smashing through several trees did he land on the ground in a horrible shape. At the same time, Tai Ta was sent flying as well. He just happened to land near Jianqin. His golden light had dimmed, and his face was pale. Golden blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Jianqin, these vengeful spirits are too powerful. We can't defeat them. Let's leave this place quickly, Tai Ta said in a low, muffled voice. He was extremely stern. Up ahead, for Holy Emperor vengeful spirits rapidly approached Jianqin and Tai Ta. 2 more Holy Emperor vengeful spirits drifted over as extremely dense in qi and grudges. Let's go! Jianqin called out. He pulled Tai Ta with him as he quickly ran out of the death nest. However, before they could even make it 100 meters away, they ran into 2 more Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. The 2 vengeful spirits attacked Jianqin and Tai Ta without any hesitation, blocking their path of retreat. With this delay, the other 6 vengeful spirits caught up to Jianqin and Tai Ta. A total of 8 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits attacked them at the same time. Now, Jianqin and Tai Ta basically had nowhere to run. They were surrounded by 8 vengeful spirits, so they could not escape even if they wanted to. Tai Ta, don't resist. Let's enter the artifact space. Jianqin called out. With that, a dazzling golden light suddenly appeared. A 10-meter tall golden tower appeared out of nowhere. As soon as it appeared, it sucked Jianqin and Tai Ta into the space within the tower. The 8 vengeful spirits shifted their target to the Golden Saint artifact after losing track of the 2 of them. 2 of the vengeful spirits swung their fists at the saint artifact, while 4 other vengeful spirits shot out beams of black light condensed from yin qi and grudges. The last 2 vengeful spirits turned into dense balls of energy that wrapped around the saint artifact. Extremely pure yin qi and grudges constantly corroded the saint artifact. Under the control of the artifact spirit, the artifact shrank to the size of a fist. It dodged left and right in an attempt to break out of the encirclement, but unfortunately the artifact was only a support artifact. It was strong on the inside and weak on the outside, so it was extremely weak when it came to external attacks. Apart from being extremely tough, it had no other advantages. In the end, the 8 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits trapped it firmly. It was unable to escape at all, and it was knocked far away many times. The fierce attacks on the sacred artifact from the outside had a huge impact on the inside of the sacred artifact space as well. The entire world inside shook violently. The countless demonic beasts living in the sacred artifact space were alarmed. A large swathe of black clouds appeared in the hazy white sky of the artifact space. It blotted out the sun and covered the entire world. It was the yin qi and grudges from the outside world that was invading the artifact space. Jianqin and Tai Ta stared at the black clouds with rather pale faces in the resplendent palace at the very center of the artifact space. They were stern and filled with worry. The artifact was their last line of defense. Chapter 1146. Artifact Spirit, what's the situation outside? Can you stop the attacks of the vengeful spirits? Jianqin asked. Master, the vengeful spirits outside are extremely powerful, and extremely powerful yin qi and grudges have invaded. I can stop them, but I won't be able to last for too long. The artifact spirit's stern figure appeared in the air. He had already fused with the saint artifact, doing everything he could to control the saint artifact's power to fend off the invading yin qi and grudges. Artifact spirit, if you can't break out of the encirclement, try your best to get close to Ruijin and the others. Then get them to leave the death nest with the saint artifact, Jianqin said with a heavy voice. His complexion was very ugly. The danger of the death nest had completely exceeded his expectations. He had never thought that, even with Ruijin and the others, they would still end up in such a dangerous situation. The saint artifact obeyed the order and immediately began to move toward Ruijin and the others. However, the situation was extremely horrible. The saint artifact was knocked away time and time again by the vengeful spirits. It was unable to get close to Ruijin and the others at all. At the same time, the 2 vengeful spirits that had turned into mist tightly surrounded the saint artifact. Extremely pure yin qi and grudges constantly invaded the saint artifact. On the other side, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian were surrounded by many vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. The battle that had taken place there could be described as devastating. If it were not for the fact that the death nest was surrounded by formations, the entire region probably would have collapsed and space would have shattered. The number of vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor that surrounded Ruijin, Honglian, and Heiyu had already reached over 80. Countless vengeful spirits gathered together, causing yin qi and grudges to fill the area. It was as if the place had become a region of ghosts, and the number was still rapidly increasing. If it were any other day, it would have been impossible for so many vengeful spirits to gather in one place. But today just happened to be the day when the saint's fruit was about to ripen. The fragrance from the fruit was fatally attractive to the vengeful spirits. So basically, all the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor in the 3rd zone had been drawn over. Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish all possessed origin energy treasures that protected their bodies and souls, preventing them from being affected by the vile energies. As a result, they were able to survive even after being surrounded. If it were any other expert in such dire straits, even a true Holy Emperor like him would be forced to flee. However, Being surrounded by so many wraiths made it difficult for Ruijin and the other two to escape. Honglian, help me open up a passageway. I'll go get the sacred artifact. The sacred artifact is in a very bad situation, Ruijin called out. Although he was busy dealing with several dozen vengeful spirits, he had always been paying attention to the situation with Jianqin and the others. He just did not have the ability to worry about them. Honglian wore a feathery robe that seemed to be woven from feathers as a layer of white flames burned around her. She used her origin energy treasure, the scorching Gauffire hairpin, to deal with the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. Her flames were the bane of these evil beings. Although they were very harmful to the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits, they were unkillable existences. They would only disperse once all the vile energies within them were exhausted. As a result, Honglian struggled to escape after being surrounded by several dozen vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. In terms of individual strength, the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor were nowhere near as powerful as living Holy Emperors. However, from another perspective, they were even more terrifying than living Holy Emperors because they were very difficult to kill. At this moment, Honglian seemed to have become a goddess of fire. Flames surged around her, making her seem extraordinarily mighty. Suddenly, she let out a clear cry at the sky. It was not the voice of a human, but the cry of a phoenix. It rang through the sky. Honglian turned into a phoenix bathed in white flames in the blink of an eye. The thumb-sized bead hovered above her head, shining with a hazy light that protected her soul. At the same time, the 9 refined Godfire feathers changed shape with Honglian. They remained as a feathery robe that wrapped tightly around the phoenix's 10-meter-long body. The phoenix flapped her wings, and endless flames immediately surged out, burning the surrounding plants to ashes. The countless vengeful spirits in the surroundings were temporarily forced back. The scorching Godfire hairpin burned with endless white flames. Under Honglian's control, it shot out as a streak of white light, shattering several vengeful spirits in a straight line. However, the vengeful spirits reassembled very soon. At the same time, a golden sword chi shot over from the side. Before the vengeful spirits that had been shattered by the scorching Godfire heavenly hairpin could fully reform, they were slashed to pieces by the sword chi once more, creating a passageway to the outside. Afterwards, Ruijin charged out of the tunnel with the sacred dragon's sword. As he charged out, 2 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits struck Ruijin's back with their palms, causing him to jerk violently. Fortunately, he was uninjured due to the protection of the origin energy treasure. Without any hesitation, he immediately shot toward the saint artifact as a streak of golden light. The Holy Emperor vengeful spirits were currently throwing the saint artifact around. Although the vengeful spirits were no longer as powerful as they were when they were alive, they were still emperors. They were extremely powerful, enough to threaten the saint artifact. After enduring the attacks from the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits, the saint artifact's golden light had dimmed. Even the shape of the tower had changed slightly. The situation within the artifact space was even worse. The hazy white sky had already darkened, allowing the artifact space to welcome its first night in over 1 million years. All the Class 7 magical beasts there stared at the sky in fear, as if they were welcoming the end of the world. The artifact spirit had already used its full strength. It mobilized the power of the entire artifact space to fend off the invading vengeful spirits. The 2 sides were engaged in a battle of attrition. It was a contest of attrition. The origin energy of Radiant Saint Force is the bane of the vengeful spirits. It can purify them, but it's a pity that the vengeful spirits are Class 9, while the origin energy I control can only reach Class 8. The artifact spirit's voice rang out. It was filled with resentment. It was the bane of the vengeful spirits, yet it was being suppressed by the enemy. It was extremely sullen. Although the artifact spirit was an expert at the same level as the Holy Emperor in the artifact space, it was only an ordinary Holy Emperor. It was nowhere near the peak. Coupled with the fact that the invading vengeful spirits were being attacked by two of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits at the same time, and the fierce attacks from several of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits outside, it was forced into a desperate situation. At this moment, Ruei-jin arrived just in time. The sacred dragon's sword shone brightly as it possessed shocking might. He swung out a few times and dispersed the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits that were attacking the artifact. Afterward, he rushed into the black mist formed by the two vengeful spirits and grabbed the artifact that was in danger. As soon as Ruei-jin obtained the artifact, the vengeful spirits he had dispersed condensed once more. They all charged toward Ruei-jin. Further away, the several dozen vengeful spirits that had attacked Ruei-jin earlier hurried over as well. They surrounded Ruei-jin once more. In the distance, a few huge demonic figures appeared. They were all over 10 meters tall and were surrounded by a surging aura of vengeful spirits. One of them was the greatest emperor of ancient times, Gustis. The vengeful spirits around him were also very powerful. They were not as powerful as Gustis, but they were not much weaker. Chapter 1147. Suddenly, Gustis and the towering vengeful spirits around him struck out. They charged toward Ruei-jin as black blurs and swung their fists at Ruei-jin. Their attacks were sharp and every single punch was heavy, enough to swallow mountains and rivers. Ruei-jin placed the saint artifact in his origin energy armor and used the origin energy to form a barrier to stop the invasion of the vile energies. Afterwards, he used his full strength to deal with the vengeful spirits. In a one-on-one, none of the vengeful spirits were Ruei-jin's opponent. Even if several of the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor worked together, they would not be able to do anything to Ruei-jin. However, there were 20 or 30 vengeful spirits attacking Ruei-jin at the same time. There were just too many of them, so even Ruei-jin struggled to fend them off. In particular, with the addition of Gustis and the others, the pressure that Ruei-jin faced suddenly increased. Not long after the battle began, a few black pillars of light condensed from vile energies struck Ruei-jin. The powerful impact forced Ruei-jin to constantly retreat as his feet left 2 deep marks in the ground. Before Ruei-jin could stabilize himself, Gustis had silently caught up to Ruei-jin. He directly threw a thunderous punch at Ruei-jin's chest. The punch tore through the air, causing the surrounding space to tremble violently. All the vile energies in the surroundings gathered wildly, causing the punch to become infinitely more powerful. Bang! With a great boom, Ruei-jin was blown away by Gustis' punch. He flew over 1,000 meters before landing beside Honglian in the end. Honglian remained in her phoenix form. She flapped her wings and unleashed a sea of fire that enveloped the surrounding region. Countless vengeful spirits flickered in and out of the pure white flames. Even though the flames were very harmful to them, they were still fearless. They reappeared in the sea of fire and launched a barrage of attacks at Honglian. However, they were all blocked by the origin energy treasure, the 9 refined Godfire feathers. Ruei-jin stood up from the ground. Although he seemed to be in an extremely horrible shape, he was not injured at all. The Holy Emperor struggled to get through the origin energy treasure, so the 3 of them were undefeatable against the Holy Emperor with the armor he wore. There are more and more vengeful spirits here, and they possess a huge advantage here. Once we run out of energy, we won't be able to replenish it here. We can't keep fighting them like this, or it'll be very bad for us, Jian said with a deep voice. Ruei-jin said with a deep voice. His armor shone with a hazy light, protecting him from the flames. However, the terrifyingly high temperature was still very uncomfortable. There are over 100 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits here right now. They've basically formed an unbreakable cage around us. Even if we use our origin energy treasures, it'll be very difficult for us to break out, the Scorching Phoenix said in the human tongue. Her voice was extremely stern. The light in Ruei-jin's eyes flickered. He said, "Honglian, perhaps I have an idea. Let's charge over and meet up with Blackfish right now. Then you and Blackfish can work together to stop the vengeful spirits, and by me time, I'll use the secret technique of the dragon race to create a miniature world. We can hide in there and break free from the vengeful spirits." "Ruijin, are you sure that'll work?" Honglian asked. "It's a supreme secret technique of my dragon race. Even in ancient times, it was one of the top techniques. It shouldn't be a problem for me to use it to get rid of these vengeful spirits. Given how the situation has developed, even if it doesn't work, we still have to try," Ruijin said. Honglian stared at Ruijin for a while before working together with Ruijin to kill the vengeful spirits in their way. They directly approached Blackfish. Over a dozen Holy Emperor vengeful spirits were shattered by their sacred dragons, sword, and scorching god fire hairpin. However, they reformed very quickly and continued to charge at Ruijin and Honglian fearlessly. At the same time, Gustis and the powerful Holy Emperor vengeful spirits of the Berserkers took action as well, making it difficult for Ruijin and Honglian to advance. They were surrounded by enemies from all sides. Whenever they advanced a little, a powerful attack from the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits would land on them. Although they were unable to injure them, the terrifying force of impact forced them to constantly retreat. Ruijin and Honglian finally arrived by Heiyu's side after expending a tremendous amount of effort. The three of them, who had been scattered by the vengeful spirits, gathered together once more. "I'll use the supreme secret technique of the Dragon Clan. The two of you block them for me," Ruijin yelled out before putting away the sacred dragon sword. His body shone with dazzling golden light, and a dense layer of golden scales appeared on the surface of his body, covering every inch of his body. Even his face was no exception. Ruijin formed a seal with his hands as he chanted in a complicated and incomprehensible ancient dragon language. It sounded like the chanting of Sanskrit, spreading through the surroundings with a mysterious energy. Soon after, strands of golden inscriptions drifted out from Ruijin's scales and condensed in front of his chest. "Universe of feathers, 9 refined god fire feather wings. Transform." Honglian also cried out. She raised her phoenix head high and let out a long phoenix cry. The 9 refined god fire feather wings that enveloped her immediately disintegrated, turning into red feathers that filled the air. Every single feather became several dozen meters long as they radiated with scorching white flames. The presence of origin energy flowed through them, bringing with it an indescribable presence. The countless feathers formed a huge barrier that enveloped a radius of 100 meters, keeping all the vengeful spirits outside. These feathers were the fate feathers of the Phoenix Clan. Every single member of the Phoenix Clan would only possess a single feather in their entire life. They were left behind by their ancestors when they were nearing the end of their lifespans. Every single feather belonged to a Class 9 Divine Phoenix, possessing unfathomable power. The feather, created from the fate feathers of so many ancestors of the Phoenix Clan, was extremely powerful in the first place. Coupled with the fact that it had already transformed into an origin energy treasure, its grade had reached a whole new level. Even the Holy Emperor was unable to break through it. As a result, Honglian used a secret technique of the Phoenix Clan to disintegrate the 9 refined Godfire feather wings into a huge barrier, which actually temporarily blocked the attacks of the vengeful spirits outside. Booms constantly rang out outside. Countless vengeful spirits were currently engulfed in flames. They endured the consequences of their weakened strength as they furiously attacked the 9 refined Godfire feather wings. They had no consciousness, so they did not know pain, let alone death. As a result, every single one of them behaved extremely valiantly. Under the attacks of so many Holy Emperor vengeful spirits, the huge barrier of flames from the 9 refined Godfire feather wings trembled violently. If it were not for the fact that it was an origin energy treasure, it probably would have shattered long ago. After all, it was not enduring the attacks of one or two holy emperor, but over 100 of them. If any other divine hall had to endure such a ferocious attack, it probably would have shattered in a single moment. The scorching divine phoenix hovered in the air. Her wings were wide open as endless white flames surged out, surging into the huge feathers of the 9 refined Godfire feather. She was using her full strength to activate the origin treasure. Blackfish stood beside Honglian sternly as he wielded his origin energy weapon. He glanced around sharply as he focused on protecting Honglian. Now that all the vengeful spirits had been blocked by Honglian's origin energy treasure, Blackfish had lost his opponent as well. There was nothing he could do right now. Although he also possessed origin energy treasures, he could not use them as effectively as Honglian could. Honglian and Ruijin's origin energy treasures were the legacy treasures of their clans. At the same time, their legacy memories clearly recorded the various secret techniques and uses to activate the origin energy treasures. However, Blackfish did not possess such knowledge. Ruijin's secret technique of the Dragon Clan had already reached its end. Golden inscriptions emerged from his scales, condensing before his chest. The space around him pulsed in an extremely unstable manner. The barrier of flames from the 9 refined Godfire feather wings trembled more and more violently. Its range had shrunk from the initial 100 meters to 50, and it showed signs of collapsing. Honglian trembled violently, blocking the attacks of so many Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. All by herself was extremely difficult for her. Chapter 1148. Honglian, you have to hold on. Ruijin's secret technique of the Dragon Clan will be complete very soon. Blackfish encouraged Honglian as he stood beside her. He was rather worried as well, but there was nothing he could do to help. He was only a mutated crocodile. Although he possessed the battle prowess of beasts of antiquity, he did not possess a bloodline legacy, so he obviously did not possess any legacy secret techniques. Honglian trembled more and more. She could not last much longer. More and more Holy Emperor vengeful spirits attacked the 9 refined Godfire feather. There were almost 150 of them, and many more vengeful spirits could be seen in the distance. They had all been drawn over by the saint's fruit. However, without any exception, all the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor that had hurried over from all directions discovered the situation. They all joined in the attack on Honglian's group. This was their instinct. Boom! With a great rumble, a feather was sent flying. A gap immediately appeared in Honglian's world of feathers. Gustis and a few other Holy Emperor vengeful spirits that were as tall as him appeared in the gap. They allowed the endless white flames to burn them. With a flash, Blackfish vanished from Honglian's side. He immediately went over to block the gap and began fighting against Gustis and the others with his origin energy weapon. He did everything he could to keep them outside. At this moment, another loud sound rang out. The second feather was also sent flying, causing a second gap to appear in the protective barrier formed by the universe of feathers. Honglian produced a loud phoenix's cry. She controlled the scorching Godfire hairpin with her mind and sent it flying over with flames. She used the origin energy treasure to block the gap. The pressure they faced was increasing. Not only was maintaining the world of feathers very taxing on Honglian, but the number of vengeful spirits outside was rapidly increasing as well. Not long after, a third loud sound rang out. Another phoenix feather was sent flying and a third gap appeared. Blackfish and Honglian's expressions became extremely ugly. They had already used everything they had. They no longer had the energy to block the third gap. However, at this moment, the Golden Saint artifact flew out from Ruijin. With a shower of golden light, Jianqin and Ta silently appeared there. Without any hesitation, they immediately charged toward the third gap. The two of them worked together to block the third gap. Jianqin pushed the defenses of his chaotic body to the limit. Even Taita was enveloped by a layer of dense, golden light, blocking the terrifying waves of heat in the surroundings. The two of them were unscathed now. Their wounds from before had all been healed in the artifact space, so they had returned to their peak. However, even with that being the case, it was still extremely difficult for the two of them to block the gap with their strength. They were both injured very soon. A few seconds later, a fourth gap appeared in the world of feathers. Immediately, several vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor charged in, lunging toward Ruijin and Honglian. The scorching godfire hairpin that had blocked the first gap flew back as a white streak of light. It passed through the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor with lightning speed, scattering them. However, they reformed in the next moment. With the scorching godfire hairpin gone, the first gap immediately lost its protection. The vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor outside began to charge in. Jianqin, Taita, Honglian, and Blackfish all revealed different expressions. However, at this moment, a dazzling golden light illuminated the sky, dyeing the entire death nest golden. The surrounding space shook violently as spatial force shook up the surroundings, throwing the surroundings into chaos. The miniature world has been formed. Everyone, hurry up and enter. At the same time, Ruijin's voice rang out in the ears of Jianqin and the others. A 3-meter-tall door stood before Ruijin. It shone with dazzling golden light, making it impossible to see what was inside. Jianqin, Taita, and Blackfish rejoiced, as if they had grasped onto a life-saving straw in their despair. They all abandoned the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor and charged into the golden door as quickly as they could. Honglian also returned to her human form. Her face was pale and filled with exhaustion. With a flash, she entered the golden door. With a wave of her hand, the countless feathers that formed the world of feathers immediately collapsed, turning into red feathers that flew toward Honglian. In the end, they reformed into a complete set of 9 refined godfire feathers on Honglian. Without the obstruction of the world of feathers, the vengeful spirits immediately surged over from all directions. They all charged towards the golden door, but as soon as they approached it, the golden door suddenly vanished without a trace. Bang! Bang! A series of collisions rang out as the bodies of the vengeful spirits collided with each other. Among them, there were even 2 vengeful spirits that were smashed into pieces, turning into black mist. However, they quickly reformed in an instant. With the disappearance of the golden door, the path of death returned to its usual silence. After losing their target, the vengeful spirits rapidly calmed down. They did not fight, and instead, they acted like nothing had happened. They silently made their way toward the saint's fruit before sitting around it and meditating. They absorbed the fragrance from the fruit and reformed their bodies. This was a golden world. As far as the eye could see, it was barren. Not a single blade of grass grew. There were no signs of life at all. Ruiji, Honglian, Blackfish, Jianqin, and Taita all sat on the ground. They were rather exhausted, Honglian in particular. Her face was pale, while Jianqin and Taita's situation was not good either. They had just recovered from their wounds, but they were heavily injured once more. We've finally broken free from those annoying things. Ruijin, will those damned vengeful spirits find us if we hide here? Blackfish let out a long sigh of relief. At the same time, he became rather worried. Ruijin shook his head. This is a miniature world I created using a supreme, secret technique of the Dragon Clan. It's equivalent to creating another space. Even those with great mastery over the mysteries of space will struggle to sense it, let alone those vengeful spirits. Don't worry, we'll be absolutely safe here. It's just that using this secret technique will consume a lot of energy. Blackfish finally stopped worrying. He said, "That's good then. I underestimated these vengeful spirits far too much. I never thought that they would be so difficult to deal with when so many of them gathered together, forcing the 3 of us into such a horrible state. Although the vengeful spirits are nowhere near as strong as when they were alive, they're even more terrifying than the Holy Emperor in a certain aspect. If the Holy Emperor was struck by our origin energy weapons, he would definitely become heavily injured and his strength would plummet. However, the vengeful spirits won't suffer the same fate. They're basically unkillable existences, Honglian added. All right, let's not talk about that right now. Let's use this time to properly recover. Then we'll properly discuss how to deal with the situation, Ruijin said. Afterwards, Ruijin, Blackfish, Honglian, and Taita all recovered the energy they had consumed. They needed to maintain their peak condition here, or it would be impossible for them to recover once they were outside. Jianqin sat on the ground and silently healed as well. The intense battle earlier had not depleted much of their chaotic force. Every single strand of chaotic force in the third layer was condensed from tremendous amounts of energy of the world, so it was extremely slow to deplete under normal circumstances. At the same time, his chaotic force could not be recovered just because he wanted to, because he needed to prepare a large amount of energy to refine it. 7 days later, they all recovered to their peak condition. Ruijin used a secret technique of the dragon clan to condense a droplet of dragon blood into a mirror. The mirror clearly reflected the saint's fruit and the situation in the surroundings. The saint's fruit remained the same as it had been a few days ago, but the surroundings were filled with vengeful spirits. They were all at the level of the Holy Emperor, and there were no less than 500 of them. There were humans, 100 races, and magical beasts. All of them felt their scalps tingle at the sight. Chapter 1149. Ruijin stared at the vengeful spirits with mixed feelings. He said with a deep voice, "The ancient times were prosperous. The Holy Emperor of that time definitely had more experts than the current Holy Emperor. The vengeful spirits we've seen are only a portion of those that died in battle. I believe there's still a very large portion of the corpses that have yet to be collected by Mo Tianyan." Jianqin nodded silently. He knew that Ruijin and Honglian knew no less than the Protector clan about the situation of the ancient times because they possessed complete memories. There's so many vengeful spirits outside right now. Once the saint's fruit ripens, how are we supposed to collect it? And how are we supposed to leave once we collect it? Honglian furrowed her brows. Everyone immediately fell silent with that question. They all began to think of a way to escape. There were just far too many vengeful spirits outside. Once they were surrounded, even Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu would struggle to charge out. They could only protect themselves temporarily, and once they ran out of energy, they would be in extreme danger. The death nest seems to be a world of its own. Space cannot be ripped open, so we can't use space gates to leave, said Blackfish. Taita glanced past everyone and hesitated. A while later, he said, I might have a way to leave. Jianqin, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish immediately looked at Taita with that. They dared not underestimate this person who possessed the memories of the war god. Taita, do you have a way to escape from the vengeful spirits? Jianqin immediately asked. Taita scratched his head in a simple manner and said in a low, muffled voice, I have the mysteries of war, so I can break through the shackles of space and travel through other dimensions. I can go anywhere I want. I've thought about it carefully, and I should be able to leave this place. However, when I use the profound meaning of war, I am the only one who can leave. I cannot bring anyone else with me. However, if all of you enter the sacred artifact, I believe I can bring the sacred artifact with me. The death nest is practically a world of its own. It's somewhat different from the outside world. Are you sure you can successfully execute your mysteries of war here? Blackfish asked. Well, Taita scratched his head and thought hard for a while. Then he said in an uncertain tone, My war profound seems to be very powerful. It can break through any spatial barrier. It shouldn't be a problem. Since you can't be sure, then we definitely can't return. If we get surrounded by those vengeful spirits again, we probably won't even have the time to create our own small world. After all, There are more vengeful spirits out there than before, Honglian said expressionlessly. It doesn't matter if it works or not, but it's at least an opportunity. If we really come to a dead end, let's let Taita try. However, for safety reasons, we need to make even more arrangements. Honglian, we can only rely on the two of us to cast down the supreme, killing formations, Ruijin said. Honglian frowned slightly. My Phoenix clan has 3 great killing formations. In ancient times, they could kill experts like the Holy Emperor. Although I have the method to cast down these formations in my inherited memories, they require far too many materials. Where are we going to find them? Ruijin looked at Genshin and said, Genshin, you've collected quite a few space rings from experts in the past few years. I think there should be some materials in there that can be used to cast down formations. Genshin took out a space ring without any hesitation. All the space rings I've collected recently are in here. I hope there's something useful in there. With that, Genshin directly tossed the space ring to Ruijin. The space ring contained several dozen space rings, all of which he had collected in the past few years. He had checked through all the items in there. He had taken out some of the valuable items and tossed them to the flame mercenaries. The rest were miscellaneous items, many of which he had no idea what their uses were. Ruijin and Honglian immediately began to look through the contents. It took them 2 days to clear out the space rings, and they really did find quite a few materials that could be used to set up formations. Behind the two of them, there were all sorts of treasures that could be used to set up formations. Behind them, the materials had already piled up into a small mountain. These materials are enough for us to cast down killing formations. But since we're missing a few crucial materials, we can only use other materials to replace them. It'll still work, but the killing formations won't be as powerful as they should be, Ruijin murmured to himself as he stared at the pile of various materials behind him. Afterward, Ruijin and Honglian both entered seclusion. They took the materials with them to cast down the formations. Since the two of them possessed inherited memories, they knew every step of the formation extremely well. Genshin, Taita, and Blackfish temporarily had nothing to do. In the following period of time, the 3 of them observed the situation outside through Ruijin's secret technique using a droplet of dragon blood. They wanted to prevent any unexpected changes from happening. A month passed very quickly. Ruijin and Honglian spent an entire month to cast down the formations. After that, they sat in front of the mirror with Genshin and Taita as they observed the situation outside. They quietly waited for the saint's fruit to ripen. Unknowingly, they had already spent 3 months in the miniature world. During those 3 months, Ruijin basically needed to replenish the miniature world with energy every other month to maintain its operation. Now, the saint's fruit had changed from 7 colors to 8 colors, while the 9 leaves had changed from 6 to 7 colors. They shone with an even more dazzling light, and the range they covered had increased once again. Everyone knew that the saint's fruit was one step closer to ripening when they saw this. It had reached a critical juncture. Very soon, another 2 months passed. The saint's fruit had changed from 8 colors to 9 colors. The light dispersed the vile energies, creating a pure land in the death nest. It seemed like a paradise. Another month passed, and the 9 leaves had changed from 7 to 8 colors. However, just when the 8 colors formed, an extremely bright light suddenly erupted. The 9 leaves and the saint's fruit seemed to have become miniature suns, shining with a dazzling light that illuminated the entire world. The entire death nest was enveloped in a dreamy light. Vast amounts of essence flowed from the 9 leaves into the saint's fruit through the roots. At the same time, vast amounts of essence surged out from the scarlet ground of the death nest, pouring into the small tree that had formed the saint's fruit. Chapter 1150. The saint's fruit shone with a resplendent light. The 9 colors seemed to represent all the colors in the world. Strands of essence constantly surged into the small tree that grew the saint's fruit from the scarlet ground that seemed to have been soaked in blood. They were first absorbed by the 9 leaves before being converted into even purer essence that flowed into the saint's fruit, causing the fruit to shine even brighter, even more dazzling, and even more resplendent. The energy within the saint's fruit rapidly increased as the profound presence it gave off became even more powerful. This was a profound truth of the world, several times more powerful than what the Holy Emperor had grasped at great perfection. An extremely heavy fragrance radiated from the saint's fruit. The fragrance was absorbed by the densely packed, vengeful spirits in the surroundings, condensing into their bodies. All the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor benefited greatly. Rumble. Suddenly, a muffled sound of thunder came from the sky. Thick lightning snakes flashed in the thick, dark clouds in the sky like dancing dragons. Every time they flashed, they brought with them a strong light that illuminated the whole world. The clouds pressed down even lower. This is the legendary heavenly tribulation. This heavenly tribulation has always been a legend among our dragon clan. Even in ancient times, no one has ever seen it. I originally thought that it was something made up, but I never thought that it actually existed. Rue Jean, who was hiding in a small world, saw the situation in the sky through a water mirror and immediately cried out in alarm. In the legends of our Phoenix clan, the heavenly tribulation represents destruction. Anything that can trigger the heavenly tribulation should not exist in the world, which is why the heavenly tribulation will descend to destroy it. The legends say that the heavenly tribulation is extremely powerful. I just wonder if the saint's fruit can survive this tribulation, Honglian said as well. She was extremely stern. It really is worthy of being the saint's fruit that can allow someone to become a holy emperor. It really is heaven-defying to actually provoke a heavenly tribulation. Mo Tianyanshur is resourceful to be able to cultivate something so heaven-defying. Blackfish sighed emotionally. He felt more and more admiration for Mo Tianyan. Boom! Suddenly, there was a deafening sound of thunder. At this moment, the entire sky turned snow-white. A huge lightning bolt, as thick as a water bucket, struck down at lightning speed. However, when the bolt of lightning reached 1,000 meters above the fruit, a formation hidden in space suddenly appeared. When the bolt of lightning struck the formation, it was actually unable to pass through it and land on the fruit. However, a mysterious power appeared on the formation after withstanding the lightning strike. It then channeled the power into the saint's fruit. Immediately, the saint's fruit began to shine brightly. The truths of the world were even more intense than before, spreading through the entire death nest. It affected the entire region, filling it with a strange presence. Even the spatial force and world force outside the death nest were affected, pulsing in an extremely unstable manner. This formation must have been cast down by Mo Tianyan. His goal is to help the saint's fruit survive the heavenly tribulation. He made the appropriate arrangements in the past, Ruijin murmured as he stared at the formation in the sky. Boom! The second bolt of lightning fell with a deafening boom. It struck the saint's fruit again, but the result was the same as before. It was blocked by the formation, leaving behind a mysterious power before silently vanishing. In the end, it was channeled into the saint's fruit. The mysterious power was condensed from the supreme mysteries of the world. After absorbing the mysteries of the world from the heavenly tribulation, the saint's fruit shone brighter and brighter. The power within it grew stronger and stronger as well. Under the assistance of the heavenly tribulation, it rapidly matured and strengthened. As the bolts of lightning constantly fell, the saint's fruit absorbed more and more mysteries of the world from the tribulation lightning. At that moment, it seemed to have become a miniature sun, shining with dazzling, 9-colored light. It dyed the entire death nest into a dreamlike world. Moreover, the 9-colored light was not limited to the death nest. The light broke through the formation of the death nest and spread to the world outside, enveloping the entire region. Even the scorching sun in the sky lost its former brilliance. The supreme mysteries of the world violently pulsed. It passed through space and basically filled the entire Tianyuan continent. At that moment, all the experts who had reached the level of Holy Emperor on the Tianyuan continent could clearly sense the powerful pulses of the mysteries of the world, causing all of them to pale. In an independent region of space on the Tianyuan continent, where the Pure Heart Pavilion resided, the Pavilion Master, Wu Qin, currently sat in a secret room with a white-robed, burly, middle-aged man. Changyang Hu, it's been so many years. Are you still unable to let it go? If you can't sever your obsession with the world of mortals, how will you reach the highest level of great liberation? Changyang Hu, the world of mortals is like a dream. In the past, you only lived in a dream. It's time for you to break free from this dream, the Pavilion Master sincerely said. She was filled with helplessness. Changyang Hu's eyes became rather lost, but they soon brightened up. He gently shook his head and said, "No, the world of mortals is not a dream. It's real. I didn't live in a dream in the past either. I lived in a real world. Pavilion Master, it's very difficult for me to sever my obsession with the world of mortals and abandon my family and friends." Sigh. The Pavilion Master deeply sighed. Just when she was about to say something, her expression suddenly changed. Her indifferent gaze sharpened at that moment. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce through space and peer into the distance. She cried out, "What powerful pulses of the mysteries of the world! They've definitely surpassed the Holy Emperor at great perfection. Has a new Holy Emperor appeared on the Tianyuan continent? Just who is he?" The birth of a Saint Emperor was extremely important to the Tianyuan continent. Even the Pavilion Master of the Pure Heart Pavilion struggled to remain calm. Chapter 1151. Every moment, the Saint's Fruit will allow a Holy Emperor to become a Holy Emperor. Now that the Saint's Fruit has reappeared, it looks like another Holy Emperor will appear on the Tianyuan continent before long. This is a blessing for the Tianyuan continent, Wu Chun murmured to herself before looking back at Changyang Hu. She said, "Changyang Hu, just stay here and have some peace and quiet. I really do hope that you can sever your ties with the world of mortals as soon as possible and break free from the shackles of the world of mortals." With that, the Pavilion Master made her way outside. Changyang Hu seemed to be struggling, but it would be replaced by confusion at times. He seemed to be at a loss for what to do, as if he had lost his direction, unable to find his path. Suddenly, Changyang Hu looked at the Pavilion Master, who was about to disappear from the secret room. He said, "Pavilion Master, I want to go home and take a look." "Changyang Hu, are you worried about your family?" The Pavilion Master paused and asked without looking back. "It's already been many years since I've been home. I wonder how my family is doing right now. There's also my brother, sister, and the others." Changyang Hu revealed an extremely rare sliver of longing. "Your worries are unnecessary. Chanyang Prefecture is like the midday sun right now, and your brother has become a peak expert renowned across the continent." The Pavilion Master gently sighed. "But I still want to go back and take a look." "I want to see my mother," said Changyang Hu. The Pavilion Master fell silent for a while before saying, "Go back. Experience the world of mortals once more. It might be of some help to you." Changyang Hu immediately left the pavilion. The Pavilion Master did not let Changyang Hu directly return through a space gate. Instead, she let him travel alone from Changyang Prefecture, crossing the great distance to return to the kingdom of Jessen with his own abilities. After Changyang Hu left, a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance arrived before the Pavilion Master. He clasped his hands and said, "Pavilion Master! This place is very far from the kingdom of Jessen. Changyang Hu will definitely encounter some difficulties along the way. Wu Xin, secretly protect Changyang Hu. Only act when his life is in danger," said the Pavilion Master. "Yes, Pavilion Master." With a single movement, Wu Xin suddenly vanished. He had already pursued Changyang Hu with great speed. The pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion returned to the simple and crude meeting hall. It was already filled with people, and all of them were important figures of the Pure Heart Pavilion. Pavilion Master, the saint's fruit that only appears once every 40,000 years has already ripened. How should we deal with it? Should we take part in the competition? A white-haired old man stood up and asked the pavilion master. The pavilion master, Wu Qin, sat on an extremely archaic cushion. She calmly said, "The Pure Heart Pavilion cultivates the Pure Heart Mantra, so we must achieve a state of mind that is pure of desires. We cannot allow external matters to cloud our minds." According to the records, when the saint's fruit appeared on the Tianyuan continent in the past, our Pure Heart Pavilion did not take part in the competition. At most, a few seniors would enter the death nest with a few experts to study its mysteries. This time, we still won't take part. At the same time, in the forbidden grounds of the back mountain of the Tyrant's Blade School, a huge, heavenly blade soared through the air. It hovered 3 meters above the ground, emitting a layer of dazzling light. On Skyblade, a muscular, middle-aged man in tight clothes sat cross-legged on the hilt of Skyblade. Streams of incomparably pure energy flowed out from Skyblade before being sucked in by the muscular, middle-aged man like a whale sucking in water. He was the ancestor of the Tyrant's Blade School, Guihai Dao. He was currently absorbing the energy within the Emperor armament to cultivate. Over 100 Emperor armaments had fused with the God artifact over the years, so the energy gathered within had reached an extremely terrifying level. Even the Holy Emperor at great perfection would struggle to control it and would suffer an extremely powerful backlash. However, as the true master of the Emperor armament, Guihai Dao could control the Emperor armament like an extension of his arm, even though he was not as powerful as the Holy Emperor at great perfection. Suddenly, Guihai Dao's eyes snapped open. Immediately, 2 terrifying streaks of light shot out from his eyes. They pierced through space, causing the space before him to shatter, reducing it to chaos. However, the scene within the death nest clearly appeared in the chaotic space. The space constantly twisted, making it difficult to discern what was going on. However, there were powerful 9-colored lights that flickered. "What's this?" Guihai Dao's expression changed. He struggled to remain composed. Only a while later did he sigh in amazement. What a powerful formation! What heaven-defying methods! Who cast this down? A few figures flew over with lightning-like speed. Guihai Dao's gaze returned to normal, and the space he had pierced through returned to normal as well. The people who had come were the great elders of the Tyrant's Blade School. They knelt down outside the forbidden grounds with great respect. One of them politely said, "Ancestor, the saint's fruit that only appears once every 40,000 years has ripened. Please allow us to leave the mountain and head to the death nest to obtain the saint's fruit so that you can recover your cultivation as the Holy Emperor." "The saint's fruit? What's that?" Guihai Dao was rather curious. He did not belong to the same generation as Mo Tianyin, and he had just returned to the Protector clan, so he obviously did not know much about what had happened to Mo Tianyin in the past. The great elders of the Tyrant's Blade School explained the matter of the saint's fruit in detail. But Guihai Dao did not rejoice at all when he heard that the fruit could allow someone to become a holy emperor. He seemed extremely nonchalant. "I have no need for the saint's fruit, but it'll be of some use to you. You can go." The great elders rejoiced. They could tell that their ancestor did not need the saint's fruit to become a holy emperor from what Guihai Dao had said, so they were obviously overjoyed. The great elders all left the Tyrant's Blade School. Guihai Dao left the forbidden grounds as well, entering the library of the Tyrant's Blade School by himself. He carefully read through the records regarding Mo Tianyin and the Death Nest. At the same time, the experts from the Changyang Prefecture, the Mayuan clan, the Yangjizong, the Shenshao sect, the Patian sect, the Yuan sect, the Heaven's Incense School, and the Heartless School all left. They directly ripped open space gates and hurried to the Death Nest. Aside from them, the supreme experts of Mercenary City moved as well. Tianjin was not the only great perfection expert of the Holy Emperor. There were a few other old men who had always lived in seclusion in Mercenary City and had only appeared during the invasion of the 100 Races. They were about to reach the end of their lifespans, so they all wanted to use the Saint's Fruit to break through to the Holy Emperor realm. A few ancient clans with great heritages had records regarding the Saint's Fruit as well. All the Holy Emperor experts and their clans hurried over. Chapter 1152. Within the courtyard of the Holy Emperor's Kingdom of God, the only Holy Emperor of the Tsar family, Zarfemer, stood in a spacious courtyard as he gazed into the distance. He was surprised and doubtful. Has someone on the Tianyuan continent broken through to the level of a Holy Emperor? No, it doesn't seem like it. Although the mysteries of the world seem to have been created by a Holy Emperor, it's completely different from the records, Zarfemer murmured. However, he seemed to think of something, and his face suddenly changed. He cried out, "I remember now. It's the Saint's Fruit. It's a fruit that only appears once every 40,000 years, according to the records. It's said that the fruit can allow a Holy Emperor to break through to the level of a Holy Emperor." Zarfemer's breathing became ragged. It was very difficult to become a Holy Emperor on the Tianyuan continent now. Many people were stuck at great perfection, unable to take another step forward for the rest of their lives. As a result, the level of a Holy Emperor was an extremely great temptation to all Holy Emperors. It was enough to make many experts who stood at the apex of the continent fight to the death. But in the next moment, Zarfemer's face became gloomy. Sorrow and helplessness filled his face as he sighed. "It's a pity that Kai Yin. Otherwise, my Tsar family might have fought for the Saint's Fruit. Sigh, I regret it so much. I was wrong back then." At the same time, the Holy Emperor ancestors of the Karza clan and the Kara clan all emerged from seclusion in the two other capital cities of the Holy Emperor's Kingdom of God. They stared in the direction of the death nest with shining eyes. After handing over some matters, they left in a hurry. At the same time, the Holy Emperor experts of the two other great empires, the Karl Empire and the Felicity Empire, all left for the Death Nest. The Death Nest was originally an extremely desolate place. It was rarely inhabited, but today it was bustling with activity. As spatial cracks appeared one after another, Holy Emperor experts arrived from all directions. At that moment, over 2/3 of the Holy Emperor experts on the continent had gathered outside the Death Nest. Only an extremely small portion of them did not take part in the bustle this time. Currently, the entire Death Nest was enveloped by a layer of dazzling 9-colored light, dyeing the world a myriad of colors. Remy rumbled in the sky as bolts of tribulation, lightning, fell one after another. It was a great disturbance, and the tremendous pressure caused the expressions of many Holy Emperor experts present to change. What exactly is going on? What exactly happened in the Death Nest? Could someone be cultivating in the Death Nest and have already become a Saint Emperor? Many Holy Emperor experts discussed the matter with one another. All of them were extremely curious. Only the ancient clans that had existed for a long time and knew about the Saint's Fruit remained silent. They did not want to leak the secret of the Saint's Fruit. Half a day later, the tribulation lightning in the sky dispersed. The Saint's Fruit had successfully undergone the tribulation with the assistance of the formations in the Death Nest. At the same time, it had absorbed a large amount of pure energy from the tribulation lightning, completing its final transformation and becoming a true Saint's Fruit. At this moment, the Saint's Fruit had returned to its original state. The 9-colored light from before had completely vanished. All the energy and vast amounts of essence had been withdrawn, without a single strand leaking out. It had returned to its original state. Even the 9 leaves that served as a contrast to the Saint's Fruit had returned to its original state. At the same time, some of the Holy Emperor experts gathered in the Death Nest began to move as well. First were the experts from the protector clans and a few ancient clans. They basically charged into the death nest at the same time. They all knew the secret of the depths of the death nest. Their ancestors had already explored the saint's fruit several times, even over a dozen times. The records of their clans clearly recorded it, so all of them knew that now was the best time to harvest the saint's fruit. Immediately, over 100 Holy Emperor experts entered the death nest. With the protector clans at the lead, they were like dragons crossing a river. They shot toward the depths of the death nest with an unstoppable force. They did not become entangled with the vengeful spirits they came across along the way. As long as a powerful, vengeful spirit blocked their path, they would be attacked by several or even over a dozen Holy Emperor experts. They would be reduced to black mist in a single instance. There must be some heaven-defying treasure in the death nest. Let's all go in and have a look. That's right. Otherwise, how would it have attracted the attention of the protector clans? The death nest may be terrifying, but there are so many Holy Emperor experts here. We can easily flatten this place if we work together. The people outside the death nest all began to call out. They had all noticed something from the actions of the protector clans and the ancient clans, so they all charged into the death nest. The death nest was terrifying, but there were extremely powerful, vengeful spirits inside. However, basically 2/3 of the peak forces on the continent had gathered here. Even if they came across the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor, they would be able to destroy them easily. As a result, all of them were filled with confidence. The many Holy Emperor experts entered the death nest in 2 groups. The first group advanced very quickly, almost as fast as lightning. They only spent 2 hours to reach the second zone before continuing on to the third without slowing down at all. The saint's fruit had already become an ordinary fruit in the third zone. It no longer gave off any fragrance, but the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor in the surroundings did not disperse. They remained where they were as they meditated. The vengeful spirits benefited tremendously after absorbing the fragrance of the saint's fruit. Their bodies, condensed from the black mist, seemed even more solid. In the golden miniature world, Jianqin, Taita, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish all sat on the ground as they stared outside. They were all waiting for the moment when the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor would leave. At this moment, the group of Saint Kings who had entered the second zone were intercepted by over a dozen vengeful spirits. Although the vengeful spirits were wiped out in the blink of an eye, the powerful shockwaves that erupted reached the third zone. A gleam of light flashed through Ruijin's eyes in the golden miniature world. As if he sensed something, he immediately cut his finger and removed a droplet of dragon blood. He used a secret technique to create a mirror that hovered in the air. Soon, the water mirror became clear. A group of human experts with different colors of light around them appeared in the water mirror. They were flying towards the third level at high speed. Chapter 1153. The 10 Protector Clan's arrival was within my expectations. The disturbance caused by the ripening of the saint's fruit was just far too great. I just never thought they'd come so quickly, said Ruijin. Then what should we do now? Should we get the people from the protector clans to fight the vengeful spirits and use them to attract their attention? Once they obtain the saint's fruit, we'll take it from them at the crucial moment, said Honglian. Everyone sank into their thoughts. Whether it was taking the saint's fruit from the vengeful spirits or taking it from a large group of Holy Emperor experts, it would not be an easy task. In terms of battle prowess, the Holy Emperor experts that had charged and were nowhere near as strong as the vengeful spirits, but they could work together. At the same time, many of them had grasped Saint-tier battle skills and various ancient secret techniques, so they were not easy to deal with. Ruijin glanced at Genshin deeply and said, "Let's not take the saint's fruit from the protector clans. If we do that, we'll probably force many people into desperate situations and do some impulsive things. After all, the saint's fruit is no ordinary item. It's the only shortcut that can allow people to become saint emperors. who would be willing to let it be taken from them. Jianqin nodded slightly with that. Ruijin had done this out of consideration for Jianqin. After all, Jianqin was not alone. He needed to consider the people behind him. The Changyang prefecture of Lore City, the kingdom of Jessen, and the Flame Mercenaries could not endure the suppression of the Protector clans and a few ancient clans. Although they basically disdained to do something like this, it was related to the saint's fruit that could allow people to become Holy Emperor. The great temptation could easily drive people crazy. Time was tight, so they began to move as soon as they made up their minds. A door opened in the golden miniature world, and Jianqin, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian all flew out. They flew over the vengeful spirits and quickly charged toward the saint's fruit. Taita did not appear. In order to prevent his identity from being exposed, Jianqin had persuaded him to enter the artifact space. The appearance of Jianqin's group of 4 immediately attracted the attention of all the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. At that moment, all the vengeful spirits stopped cultivating and stood up at the same time. Without saying a single word, they all charged toward Jianqin's group. Jianqin, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish were already fully armed. Jianqin's chaotic force filled every inch of his body, pushing the great defense of the chaotic body to the limit. Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu had all drawn their origin energy treasures as well. They were ready for both attack and defense. With a flash of destructive light, Ruijin's sacred dragon's sword and Heiyu's machete slashed out at the same time, sending powerful sword chi and blade chi toward the vengeful spirits. Honglian's scorching godfire hairpin also flew out with a layer of scorching white flames. She worked with Ruijin and Blackfish to sweep through the vengeful spirits. The 3 origin energy treasures unleashed their might at the same time. The power was unimaginable, obliterating space and destroying everything in its path. They shattered the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor without any effort, reducing them to black mist. At the same time, the vengeful spirits rapidly weakened under the might of the origin energy. However, this was not enough to completely kill off the vengeful spirits. Very soon they reformed nearby. However, the 3 of them had opened up a path through their combined attacks. They immediately followed the path and rapidly approached the saint's fruit. However, there were just far too many vengeful spirits charging over from all directions. Over 500 of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits formed a wall that surrounded Ruijin's group. All the vengeful spirits struck out at the same time. Various attacks flooded over, drowning out Ruijin's group like a flood. Honglian tossed out her hand, and 9 fiery red phoenix feathers flew out. They swelled with the wind and rapidly enlarged, turning into 9 phoenixes that were over 100 meters long. They spread their wings and soared through the air as flames raged around them, causing the temperature of the surroundings to rapidly climb. The 9 phoenixes did not attack. Instead, they rapidly revolved in a circle, moving faster and faster. In the end, they actually formed a fiery red barrier around Honglian's group, blocking all the attacks from the vengeful spirits. There are some flaws in the materials used to forge the divine phoenix's shield, so the formation can't unleash its full power. It won't last for very long, so let's move faster. We have to get the saint's fruit as soon as possible, Honglian said with a heavy voice before controlling the formation to quickly move them forward. Muffled booms constantly rang out. The attacks from the countless vengeful spirits all landed on the protective formation, causing the barrier of light formed from the 9 phoenixes to constantly tremble. The vengeful spirits in front of them were a black mass. Honglian controlled the formation to move forward with great difficulty. After an entire incense stick's worth of time, they had only advanced less than a kilometer. Now, it could be said that they were having a hard time moving forward. Finally, the formation shattered with a boom. Without the protection of the formation, the densely packed Holy Emperor vengeful spirits immediately appeared before Jianqin's group. They swarmed toward them. Ruijin took action in time. He tossed out the 18 dragon scales. Every single dragon scale had been specially refined and was engraved with complicated inscriptions. The 18 dragon scales hovered in the air. It emitted a layer of golden light screen that interweaved together to protect this part of the universe. Ruijin and Honglian had made sufficient preparations for this trip. They had prepared quite a few defensive and killing formations. Even though the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor had reached an extremely terrifying number, they remained fearless. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn out, tiny cracks had already appeared on the 18 dragon scales. Clearly, they could not hold on for much longer. Meanwhile, the few of them had only advanced 1,000 meters during this period of time. We've prepared a limited number of formations. We can't just exhaust them like this. We need to move forward quickly. Jianqin, enter the artifact space first. The three of us will work together to kill our way through, Ruijin said with a heavy voice. Jianqin did not hesitate at all. He immediately pulled out the saint artifact and entered the artifact space. Afterward, the saint artifact was placed in Ruijin's bosom. The moment the 18 dragon scales shattered, the three of them erupted with their peak battle prowess at the same time. They stabbed into the vengeful spirits before them like a sharp blade, charging forward with an unstoppable momentum. During that time, the three of them had endured many powerful attacks from the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. If it were not for their origin energy treasures, they probably would have been heavily injured long ago. At the same time, the many Holy Emperor experts, led by the 10 protector clans, entered the 3rd floor of the Death Nest as well. Saint force of various attributes flickered around all of them. From afar, they seemed like tiny lanterns as they circulated their energy to fend off the vile energies. As soon as they entered the 3rd floor, their faces immediately changed. They all looked in the same direction. The disturbance caused by Ruijin's group and the Holy Emperor's vengeful spirits was just too great. Although they were very far away, they could clearly sense the violent pulses of energy. Oh no! Someone got here before us and has already begun fighting with the vengeful spirits, a red-robed old man said with a heavy voice. He was a grand elder from the Heaven's Incense School. One of the protector clans, said a red-robed old man in a deep voice. The saint's fruit has only just ripened. We all hurried over as quickly as possible. So how is it possible for someone to arrive here before us? A ruddy, sagely old man from the Shenshao sect said with a deep voice. He frowned. The people over there are extremely powerful. They're no weaker than some of us, yet they can still fight so intensely against the attacks of so many vengeful spirits. This definitely isn't something someone at great perfection like the Holy Emperor can do, Yangzi from the Yuan sect said with a heavy voice. The light in his eyes flickered. Chapter 1154. The Holy Emperor experts from the protector clans and ancient clans immediately charged in the direction of the battle. Basically, all the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits in the 3rd zone of the Death Nest had gathered around the saint's fruit, so there were very few vengeful spirits in the 3rd zone. As a result, the journey of the protector clans and ancient clans was extremely smooth. They did not come across a single vengeful spirit as they made their way to the center of the battle. However, when they arrived, each and every one of them was dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded as they stared at the scene in front of them. The shock in their hearts had reached an extreme level. There were over 500 vengeful spirits in front of them. They formed a black mass as they pressed down on the same spot. Various powerful attacks were launched from the vengeful spirits, drowning out the space there and causing the ground to rumble as the attacks struck it. From time to time, dazzling golden sword chi would shoot out from the encirclement formed by countless vengeful spirits. There were also strands of white flames that gave off a terrifying temperature. However, no one could see the person surrounded by the vengeful spirits. They can actually block the attacks of so many Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. Only the Holy Emperor can do something like that, But our Tianyuan continent only has one holy emperor, the Path Lord of Carnal Desires. However, they're clearly not the Path Lord. Who are they? Are they holy emperor experts from the Beast God continent? No, they're not any of the three supreme experts of the Beast God continent. Their presences are completely different. Is the Path Lord of Carnal Desires not the only Saint Emperor on the Tianyuan continent? The ancestors of the Protector clans and ancient clans were all shocked. There were extremely few holy emperor experts in the current world. Even with the entire world in perspective, they could be counted on one hand. Now that two holy emperor experts had suddenly appeared, it was definitely an extremely shocking piece of news. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying pulse of energy erupted. A huge, resplendent sword chi, a dazzling white blade of light, and a 3-meter-long burning hairpin pierced through the encirclement of vengeful spirits at the same time. Wherever they passed, the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor would be reduced to black mist. Over 20 vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor were dispersed. An opening appeared in the encirclement of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. Ruijin and Honglian immediately charged out and continued to approach the Saint's Fruit. They were getting closer and closer to it now. It's them. It's actually the dragon and the other powerful magical beast that fought the Path Lord and the Holy Emperor of the Beast God continent. Many people immediately recognized Ruijin and the others as soon as they appeared. Cries rang out everywhere. They have origin energy weapons that can harm the Holy Emperor, origin energy armor that prevents the Holy Emperor from injuring them, and a wondrous bead that protects their souls. They're only able to survive the encirclement of so many Holy Emperor vengeful spirits because of these 3 treasures, a Holy Emperor from an ancient clan enviously explained. If I had these 3 treasures, I would be able to slaughter my way out of the encirclement of so many vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor, someone thought inside. He struggled to hide his envy and jealousy. The Saint's Fruit. That's the Saint's Fruit. Suddenly, a cry rang out from the crowd. With that, everyone immediately focused their attention. As expected, they discovered an ordinary-looking tree growing all by itself on the scarlet ground. It had 9 leaves, and a fist-sized fruit had condensed at the center of the 9 leaves. It shone with a dim light, returning to its original state. It was simple and plain, just like an ordinary fruit. The people gathered there all came from ancient organizations with long legacies. The records of their clans possessed extremely detailed records of the Saint's Fruit, so they immediately recognized it as soon as they saw it. Everyone's eyes began to burn with desire. At that moment, an extremely great desire to possess the Saint's Fruit appeared from the bottom of their hearts. It was very difficult to reach Saint Emperor in the current world, so the Saint's Fruit was the only shortcut to becoming a holy emperor. No one could resist this great temptation. Now, no one paid attention to Ruijin's group anymore. The Saint's Fruit had attracted all their attention. In the next moment, all the people from the Protector clans and the ancient clans charged toward the Saint's Fruit as quickly as they could. Their movements immediately alarmed a portion of the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor that were attacking Ruijin's group. Immediately, close to 200 vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor separated, blocking the path of the people from the Protector clans as streaks of black light. The 2 sides immediately began to engage in an intense battle. Over 100 human Holy Emperor and 200 vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor engaged in an extremely intense battle. The human Holy Emperor wanted to break free from the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor in the shortest amount of time possible so that they could obtain the Saint's Fruit. As a result, they did not hold back at all as they used various powerful Saint-tier battle skills and ancient secret techniques. Tremendous ripples of energy shook the surroundings as if they were about to destroy the world. Storms of energy whistled by, causing the black mist in the death nest to churn violently. The 100 human Holy Emperor experts were actually on par with 2 or more Holy Emperor vengeful spirits. Although the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits were extremely powerful existences when they were still alive, their strength had been drastically reduced as vengeful spirits. At the same time, the human experts had also grasped powerful saint-tier battle skills and ancient, secret techniques. As a result, the Holy Emperor experts could hold their own against the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor in a one-on-one battle unless they encountered an existence as powerful as Gusties. The pressure on Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish immediately lessened. The three of them let out a sigh of relief inside as they secretly thanked the people of the Protector clans. Their arrival had reduced their pressure by quite a lot. At this moment, another group of people charged over from behind with lightning speed. They were the second group of Holy Emperor experts that had entered the Death Nest. They did not possess any ancient legacies, so they did not know about the Saint's Fruit. However, all the people who could become Holy Emperor were extremely intelligent. All of them knew that the Saint's Fruit hid something that the Protector clans coveted. There's a small tree over there with a fruit growing on it. It must be an extremely precious heavenly resource. Someone from the second group of people saw the Saint's Fruit and said loudly. The hearts of the people from the Protector clans and ancient clans sank slightly. All of them quickly retreated, drawing a large number of vengeful spirits back to the second group of people, pulling them in as well. With the addition of the second group of people, the 200 or so Holy Emperor vengeful spirits were immediately no match for the Holy Emperor experts. Many of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits had already been dispersed. Immediately, another 200 or so Holy Emperor vengeful spirits abandoned Ruijin's group of three and aggressively charged toward the group of human Holy Emperor experts. With that, the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits attacking Ruijin's group was immediately reduced to less than 200. Ruijin's group was overjoyed. They unleashed their full strength without holding back at all. They slaughtered their way out and rapidly approached the Saint's Fruit. The Saint's Fruit is a treasure of our human race. Outsiders can't take it away. Yi Yangzi immediately flew into a rage when he discovered the intentions of Ruijin's group. He bellowed out and immediately abandoned the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits that he had suppressed. He charged toward Ruijin with the other experts from the Protector clans in an attempt to stop them. You think you can stop me with just the likes of you? You overestimate yourselves, Jianqin coldly said. Honglian said coldly. The scorching godfire hairpin immediately shot out a large swathe of white flames that enveloped Yi Yangzi's group. Yi Yangzi's group changed in expression and immediately dodged. However, a Holy Emperor at the 8th heavenly layer of Holy Emperor was still a step too slow. His lower body was swept by the white flames, and his legs immediately began to burn. His flesh was burnt to a crisp. But the terrifying white flames did not extinguish because of that. Instead, they rapidly spread from his legs to his upper body. Arg! That person let out a miserable shriek. His lower body was disappearing bit by bit. The white flames possessed unimaginable power and could not be extinguished at all. This was the fire from the Origin energy weapon, the scorching Godfire hairpin. It was countless times more powerful than the flames that Honglian could control. Swish! With a flash of light, a Holy Emperor struck out decisively and cut his companion in half. Only then did he stop the terrifying consequences of the white flames spreading to his upper body. What terrifying flames! This scene stunned all the Holy Emperor experts. Many of them were filled with fear towards the white flames. How can we allow outsiders to lay a finger on the sacred items of our human race? The battle between the vengeful spirits and the human experts continued. At this moment, an old voice sounded. 4 white-haired old men with ruddy complexions sat cross-legged in midair. Their bodies were steaming with hydrogen gas, as if they were immortals. Around a dozen Saint Kings stood guard around the 4 of them, fending off the attacks of the vengeful spirits in the surroundings. It's the people from the Shenshao sect. Looks like they're about to use the heaven's thunder, It's rumored that the Heaven's Thunder is the supreme divine technique of the Shenshao sect. It can summon the lightning above the 9 heavens. It once destroyed a holy emperor's body and soul, reducing him to charcoal. Chapter 1155. At that moment, the 4 great elders of the Shenshao sect became the center of attention. Many human experts glanced at them from the corner of their eyes as they fought against the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. Legend had it that the supreme divine technique of the Shenshao sect was a powerful secret technique that had reached the pinnacle of the saint rank. It had even surpassed the saint rank battle skill, reaching an even more profound realm. The Shenshao sect rarely used the Shenshao heavenly thunder since ancient times because it consumed an extremely great amount of energy, and the user would suffer a powerful backlash. It was basically a forbidden technique, but once the Shenshao heavenly thunder was used, its power was enough to destroy the world. The 4 great elders of the Shenshao sect sat in the air as they formed seals with their hands. Azure Qi surged from their bodies and shot into the sky. They used the strand of Azure Qi to resonate with the world from afar, triggering a mysterious and powerful energy from the sky. Kacha! Suddenly, there was a deafening crack of thunder. A huge bolt of lightning fell from the sky, heading towards Honglian with unbelievable speed. There were no dark clouds. The bolt of lightning had completely descended from the blue sky. Thunder rumbled, echoing through the entire sky. It shone with an extremely bright light, illuminating the entire world. At that moment, the bolt of lightning seemed to be the only thing in the world. It shone with the most resplendent light, causing even the sun in the sky to pale in comparison. Honglian raised her head to look at the sky, and a vicious light flashed through her eyes. She murmured, "There's something there, but it's still not enough to harm me." She had already been locked onto by the bolt of lightning, so she could not dodge at all. All she could do was take it head-on. The Raging Flame's Godfire hairpin, the Phoenix clan's most precious treasure, burned with white flames. Then it was thrown into the sky by Red Lotus. Immediately, the palm-sized Raging Flame's Godfire hairpin turned into a huge hairpin that was 10 meters long. It turned into a white light and charged toward the heavenly thunder of heavenly night with an unstoppable momentum. Boom! The scorching Godfire hairpin collided with the Shenshao heavenly thunder, erupting with an even louder boom. The terrifying sound waves caused the ground of the death nest to tremble slightly. Many Holy Emperor experts lost their hearing from the shock waves. The mighty heavenly thunder of the heavenly night suddenly shattered. The huge pillar of lightning that was originally as thick as a bucket was smashed into countless tiny sparks by the hairpin and shot in all directions. It looked like a beautiful flower blooming in the sky, creating a unique scene. What a powerful origin energy weapon! It actually destroyed the supreme technique of the Shenshao sect so effortlessly. All the Holy Emperor experts were in an uproar when they saw this. Greed even appeared in the eyes of quite a few people. Such a powerful origin energy weapon had already tempted many people. If they obtained it, they would be invincible as long as the Holy Emperor did not appear. They would even be able to fend off the Holy Emperor experts. The 4 great elders who used the Shenshao heavenly thunder all had ugly expressions. They were slightly pale, but they said nothing. They gritted their teeth and continued to use the Shenshao heavenly thunder. Honglian did not give them a chance to continue using the heavenly thunder of the heavens. She was surrounded by roaring flames, like a god of fire descending. She turned into a red streak of light and shot towards the 4 great elders of the Shenshao sect. Over a dozen Holy Emperor experts who were protecting the 4 great elders all stepped forward. They stared at Honglian sternly and struck out with their palms at the same time. Immediately, a tremendous amount of energy surged out, shooting towards Honglian with overwhelming force. The scorching Godfire hairpin immediately scattered with terrifying white flames. The flames seemed to be able to melt everything in the world. The overwhelming amount of energy that the Holy Emperor experts had unleashed at the same time was actually incinerated by the white flames. Strands of flames spread out along with a sliver of presence, actually contaminating the arms of the Holy Emperor experts. Their arms immediately began to burn, and their flesh was gradually reduced to ashes. The Holy Emperor experts all grunted. They were unable to put out the white flames, so they could only make up their minds and sever their own right arms. Only then did they stop the flames from spreading. As for their severed right arms, they were instantly incinerated into ashes. With that, no one dared to stop Honglian anymore. The white flames were terrifying. Once they came into contact with them, they would lose a layer of skin, even if they did not die. However, the Red Lotus continued to furiously charge at the 4 great elders of the Shinshao sect. Their expressions changed drastically, and they no longer cared about anything else. They all forcefully stopped using their secret techniques to avoid the Red Lotus. Honglian waved her hand, and the scorching Godfire hairpin immediately trembled. 4 finger-sized sparks shot out, shooting towards the 4 great elders with lightning speed. Afterwards, she used the hairpin to disperse the 2 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits that had suddenly appeared from the side. One of the great elders used a Holy Emperor vengeful spirit beside him as a shield to block the incoming sparks. One of the other 3 was struck in the thigh by the sparks, while the other 2 were struck in the chest. The white flames immediately began to boil, starting from their chests and rapidly spreading into the surroundings. The 3 grand elders all cried out in pain. One of them did not hesitate to cut off his own leg, while the heads of the other 2 who had been struck in the chest exploded at the same time. They decisively abandoned their bodies, and their souls flew out, quickly flying towards the uninjured grand elder before being sucked into a gourd. A tremendous pressure descended from the sky, crushing down on Honglian like an invisible mountain. Over 10 Holy Emperor experts in the surroundings had already used Saint Tier battle skills. They all targeted Honglian. There were people from the Protector clans and ancestors of ancient clans among them. Honglian let out a clear phoenix's cry. The flames around her surged 10 meters into the air as several pillars of fire as thick as an arm shot out in all directions. As expected, their targets were the Holy Emperor experts who used Saint Tier battle skills. At a closer look, it was not difficult to see that there was a long, fiery red phoenix feather in each of the pillars of fire. The flames outside came from the phoenix, feathers hidden within. The current situation had completely turned into a 3-sided battle. On one side were Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian. On the other side were several hundred vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. On the last side were many human experts. Honglian had taken on so many human experts and the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor all by herself. She had attracted the attention of many human experts. Many people from the Protector clans and ancient clans had already moved against Honglian, although they were very wary of Honglian's flames. That did not mean they were afraid. The great elders of Changyang Prefecture all became uneasy. They all knew about the relationship between Ruijin, Heiyu, and Jianqin, so they were all hesitating over whether they should become enemies with Ruijin's group or not. They would never allow outsiders to take the saint's fruit because it was a sacred item of the human race. Chapter 1156. Jianqin had already arrived before the saint's fruit. With a flip of his hand, a jade box made from supreme quality jade appeared in his hand. Without any hesitation, he immediately threw it toward the simple saint's fruit. Jianqin, he's from Changyang Prefecture. The people of Changyang Prefecture have already approached the saint's fruit. Be careful, everyone. The people of Changyang Prefecture are working with the foreigners. Many people discovered Jianqin approaching the saint's fruit and immediately cried out before attacking even more viciously. They did everything they could to deal with the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor that had been bothering them. They wanted to take the saint's fruit for themselves. The great elders of Changyang Prefecture all rejoiced. Jianqin's appearance had definitely exceeded their expectations. Although they knew that Jianqin had some ties with Ruijin and the others, they had never thought that it would be so close that the three of them would be willing to take action for him. Fantastic, this is just fantastic. This saint's fruit belongs to our Changyang prefecture. Changyang Juri was overjoyed. Changyang Qingjuri was filled with excitement. He seemed to be able to see the appearance of a saint emperor in the Changyang clan soon. He was not the only one. Even the other great elders of Changyang prefecture were the same. Their excitement was evident. Jianqin's actions had pushed the battle to a climax. In order to prevent the saint's fruit from falling into the hands of others, everyone used all their strength. They all charged toward the saint's fruit with bloodshot eyes. However, just when Jianqin's jade box was about to land on the saint's fruit, another formation silently appeared in the air. It formed a barrier of light that protected the saint's fruit. A gleam of light flashed through Jianqin's eyes. He immediately took out his emperor armament to break through the formation. But the formation was extremely powerful. Even when he used all his strength, he was unable to shake it at all. The humans and the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor suffered very heavy losses. Several dozen people from the human side were injured to varying degrees. 3 experts below the 3rd heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor had even died there. Their souls had been wiped out by the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor, and all their vitality had been drained away. The vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor suffered heavy losses as well. Many of the vengeful spirits had been dispersed several times. Over a dozen of them had been reduced to a dense, black mist, unable to reform their bodies anymore. On the other side, the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, Tianjian, and the 5 old men who were about to pass away worked together with the 2 other Holy Emperor at great perfection from the Protector clans to battle Gustis. Gustis had been the strongest of the Holy Emperor in ancient times, so his strength as a vengeful spirit was just as terrifying. Tianjian and the others had gathered a total of 8 Holy Emperor at great perfection to barely stop Gustis, but they had been forced into a disadvantageous position by Gustis. The 5 Grand Elders from Mercenary City and the 2 great perfection experts from the Protector clans immediately began to panic when they saw how the saint's fruit was about to be taken away. This vengeful spirit is far too powerful. If this continues, we won't be able to determine the victor even if we fight for 3 days and 3 nights. We can't continue like this. Let's use our trump cards to destroy these vengeful spirits and then go take the saint's fruit. One of the old men of Mercenary City yelled. With a flip of his hand, a ball of scorching light suddenly appeared in his right hand. The presence of extreme yang began to circulate, as well as a sliver of fiery aura. With a wave of his hand, the scorching light condensed in his hand immediately turned into a rain of light that enveloped Gustis. Only now did it become possible to see that it was actually a ball of extremely tiny sand. Every single grain of sand shone with a scorching, golden light. They actually possessed the essence of the sun. When the sand landed on Gustis, it was like a speck of fire had landed on a jar of alcohol. It actually caused Gustis' body to spontaneously combust, rapidly weakening him. Everyone, don't stay behind, or none of us will be able to take the saint's fruit. Use the golden sun sand to destroy these vengeful spirits, someone called out from the crowd. A loud shout rang out from the crowd. The person who had shouted was a great elder of the tyrant's blade school. Hesitation appeared in the eyes of some of the great elders from the Protector clans when they heard that. However, they soon made up their minds. With a flip of their hands, a ball of scorching light immediately appeared in their hands. It contained the pure essence of the sun. A ball of scorching light also appeared in the hands of a few ancestors of ancient clans. They then tossed it toward the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor with pained faces. The golden sun sand was something that the past Holy Emperor experts had specially researched to deal with the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. They used meteorites as materials and ground them into fine sand before flying to outer space and placing the fine sand extremely close to the sun. They would then be refined for 1,000 years with the flames of the sun. Every single grain of sand had absorbed the flames of the sun for 1,000 years, so they possessed the essence of the sun. They were extremely tough and young, which just happened to be the nemesis of the vengeful spirits. Even the protector clans had an extremely limited stock of the golden sun sand. It was their ultimate trump card against the vengeful spirits. No one would use it unless they had no other choice. This was because refining the golden sun sand was just far too difficult. Only Holy Emperor experts possessed the ability to get so close to the sun and cast down a powerful formation that could endure the flames of the sun so that the sand would move with the sun. This was not something a regular Holy Emperor could accomplish. All the ancient clans that possessed the golden sun sand were powerful clans that had once produced Holy Emperor experts. A rain of light scattered through the air. As soon as it touched the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits would rapidly weaken. The human experts were originally at a disadvantage, but with the appearance of the golden sun sand, the situation immediately reversed. They had instead suppressed the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. The vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor began to retreat, while a few Holy Emperor experts at great perfection abandoned the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor and flew toward the saint's fruit. Gusties had been greatly weakened by the golden sun sand, so he had already retreated. The 5 old men of Mercenary City all cast their gazes toward the saint's fruit, and their eyes burned with desire. They flew toward the fruit at the same time, and 2 other great perfection experts who had fought against Gusties went with them. Hold on. 5 old men. Jianshin has close ties with our mercenary city, and his talent is extremely great. Doing this will only ruin his relationship with our mercenary city. Tianjin stood before the 5 old men blocking their path. Chapter 1157. The 5 old men of Mercenary City charged toward Jianshin at the same time. Although Tianjin was the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, he was unable to stop them. The 5 of them originally possessed special statuses in Mercenary City. They were even older than Tianjin, so they could be considered Tianjin seniors. The situation the Holy Emperor's vengeful spirits faced was completely one-sided. The threat of the sun gold sand was just too great. Once they came in contact with it, they would immediately begin to combust. It was impossible to extinguish the flames, so they rapidly weakened. Many of the vengeful spirits had already retreated. There were even a few vengeful spirits that had been beaten to the point where they could no longer condense and were heavily injured. At this moment, Jianshan was filled with anxiety as he stood before the saint's fruit. The fruit was protected by a powerful formation. It was impossible for him to get through it. Ziying, Qingsuo, is there any way to get through this formation? Jianshin asked the sword spirits for help. Master, this is a death formation. There's no way to get through it. The only way to get through it is to destroy it with absolute force. Qingsuo's voice rang out in Jianshin's head. Beside him, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish fought as hard as they could. Not only did they keep the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor at bay, but even a few human experts had become their opponents. Spatial gravity. Suddenly a cry rang out. A great elder of a protector clan used an ancient secret technique from afar, causing the gravity around Ruijin and the others to skyrocket. Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish all felt their bodies sink. At that moment, they felt the gravity around them increase by over 1,000 times, causing the ground beneath them to sink slightly. Even Jianshin was affected. A gleam of light flashed through Ruijin's eyes. He bellowed out, and the sacred dragon's sword suddenly filled the space with dazzling golden light. It caused the space there to tremble violently. He used supreme power to break through the space that had been sealed with an ancient secret technique. As soon as the ancient secret technique was broken, a tremendous pressure descended from the sky once again. Another Holy Emperor used a Saint Tier battle skill, and this time there were over 30 people using it. Ruijin waved his hand, and 18 palm-sized flags suddenly appeared. Every single flag shone with a hazy golden light. Through the golden light, it was possible to vaguely see that every single flag was engraved with inscriptions. Powerful pulses of energy radiated from them. The 18 small banners were arranged in a specific position in the air, and they began to shine with blinding light. The light actually formed a faint, golden barrier of energy that enveloped Ruijin and the others. Over 30 human experts unleashed their Saint Tier battle skills at the same time. Over 30 tremendous energy ripples and over 30 extremely powerful attacks basically landed on the barrier at the same time, immediately causing the barrier to tremble violently. The barrier did not shatter, but over 20 Holy Emperor vengeful spirits that constantly attacked the barrier were reduced to black mist by the powerful Saint Tier battle skills. Swish! With a flash of golden light, Ruijin knew that Jianchen would not be able to break through the formation protecting the Saint's fruit, so he directly stabbed at the formation with his origin energy weapon. The formation violently shook, but it stabilized very quickly. Ruijin's attack, which was no weaker than the Holy Emperor's, was actually unable to break through the formation. "Let's break through the formation together," Blackfish said with a deep voice. Heiyu growled. The origin energy weapon in his hand shone with a dazzling white light as mysterious and powerful origin energy coiled around it. He then worked with Ruijin to attack the formation protecting the Saint's fruit. Ruijin and Blackfish were extremely careful. Although their origin energy weapons were powerful, they could still control them. When they swung their weapons down, they did not target the Saint's fruit. Instead, they attacked the formation from the side, afraid that they would accidentally destroy the Saint's fruit. The formation protecting the Saint's fruit was much more powerful than they had imagined it to be. It did not shatter even after taking on the combined attack of Ruijin and Blackfish. It only shook even more violently. Again, Blackfish bellowed out as a tremendous presence erupted from his body. His clothes and hair ruffled without any wind, while the machete in his hand shone with an even more dazzling light. It worked with Ruijin's sacred dragon's sword to attack the formation once again. This time, the formation protecting the Saint's fruit finally shattered. Jianchen did not hesitate at all. He carefully placed the Saint's fruit into the jade box before taking away the remaining 9 leaves as well. He carefully stored them away. Jianchen immediately exhaled deeply after doing all that. He gently rubbed his space ring as he was filled with joy. He had finally obtained the Saint's fruit after spending so much effort. With the Saint's fruit and the 9 leaves taken away, the remaining bare tree rapidly withered. It dried up in the blink of an eye before disappearing into the ground. Boom! With a deafening boom, the 18 small banners finally shattered after withstanding the attacks of the humans and the vengeful spirit of the Holy Emperor. A large group of humans aggressively charged toward Jianchen with bloodshot eyes. "Hand over the Saint's fruit!" Many human experts bellowed out. Jianchen seemed to have crossed their bottom line by taking away the Saint's fruit. All of them were infuriated, and they no longer cared about anything else. Chapter 1158. A devastating strand of golden sword chi suddenly appeared. The sword chi tore through the air like a streak of light and slashed out with unstoppable force. The huge strand of sword chi directly enveloped all the human experts up ahead, causing all of their faces to change. At the same time, a huge, silver-white blade of light shot through the air with lightning speed, heading toward a human expert in another direction. The temperature in the surroundings rapidly rose as terrifying waves of heat swept over. A region of roaring, white flames suddenly rose up, forming a terrifying wall of fire in the air. Countless human experts were afraid to approach it. They were extremely fearful. Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish struck out at the same time, fending off the enemies that came from all directions. They used their origin energy weapons to form a tough fortress, forcefully keeping the countless human experts at bay. Although the human experts were not as powerful as the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor, they were extremely intelligent. They knew how to work together, and they knew many ancient secret techniques and saint-tier battle skills. Facing them was not necessarily as easy as facing the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. Faced with the huge sword Qi and blade of light from Ruijin and Blackfish, the human experts immediately worked together with great tacit understanding. All of them launched attacks at Ruijin and Blackfish at the same time. Although there were no Holy Emperor experts among the human experts, the combined attack of several dozen or even over 100 Holy Emperor experts was no weaker than the Holy Emperor experts. It might even surpass them. Probably even a Holy Emperor would be forced to avoid them. With two deafening booms, the attacks from Ruijin and Blackfish's origin energy weapons were blocked by the Holy Emperor experts. The origin energy weapons were extremely powerful, but the Holy Emperor could block them. However, once they were injured by the origin energy, even a Holy Emperor would be injured. After blocking Ruijin and Blackfish's attacks, the confidence of the human experts swelled. They could not help but become less fearful as they all charged forward. As for the wall of fire that Hong Lian had set up in the air, no one dared to touch it. They all took a detour around it. The vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor rapidly decreased in number. The Sun Gold Zan had played a huge role, turning the situation around and wiping out many vengeful spirits. The vengeful spirits were unable to reform after exhausting all their energy, turning into a black mist in the death nest. Only after countless years would they be able to reform once their energy recovered. Of course, a small portion of the Holy Emperor vengeful spirits managed to escape, avoiding the disaster. In the death nest, the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor were basically indestructible existences. Hong Lian released the killing formation. Ruijin called out. He immediately pulled out the formation he had prepared earlier from his space ring and tossed it out. The formation activated in the air and emitted powerful pulses of energy, causing the space in a radius of 1,000 meters to distort. Soon after, all the human experts in the area vanished. They had been trapped within the formation. Hong Lian frowned and said with a heavy voice, "We specially prepared these killing formations to deal with the vengeful spirits of the Holy Emperor. We've made many changes to them and installed many methods against vengeful spirits. If we use them against human experts, the killing formations will basically lose their advantage. They won't be able to trap them for long." Although that was what she said, Hong Lian did not hesitate. She released the killing formations without any hesitation, trapping over 30 Holy Emperor experts. Once the two killing formations were released, they immediately trapped almost 100 human experts, greatly reducing the pressure they faced. Blackfish did not use the formations. He directly charged into the group of human experts with his machete. As he swung his machete, blood splattered everywhere. Apart from the Holy Emperor at great perfection, no one was Blackfish's opponent. However, even great perfection experts did not dare to take on the attacks of Blackfish's origin energy weapon head-on. The formation of the human experts was thrown into disarray by Blackfish. Blackfish rampaged through the crowd, making it very difficult for them to gather the strength of several dozen people to unleash a powerful attack. Ruijin looked back at Jianqin and said, "These killing formations don't pose much of a threat to the human experts. They'll break free very soon. Jianqin, follow behind us. We'll kill our way out." Jianqin sternly nodded. Their plans were unable to keep up with the changes. They originally planned on getting Tai Ta to take them away after obtaining the Saint's Fruit, but there were so many human experts present. In order to hide Tai Ta's identity, Jianqin only had Tai Ta hide in the artifact space. Ruijin, Hong Lian, and Blackfish arrived at the front. They charged into the Holy Emperor's group and killed their way out. Jianqin did not remain idle either. He wielded his emperor armament and fought against 2 holy emperor at the 7th heavenly layer and 3 at the 6th heavenly layer. The saint artifact hovered above his head, blocking wave after wave of powerful attacks for him from time to time. The 4 of them had basically become public enemies in everyone's eyes. They were surrounded from all sides and had to endure various ancient secret techniques and saint-tier battle skills. However, these attacks were very difficult to injure Ruijin and the others who were protected by their origin energy armor. During this time, the Saint artifact had blocked 2 waves of Saint-tier battle skills for Genshin. Behind the crowd, 5 old men sat cross-legged in the air and joined forces to use a secret technique. They then pointed at Heiyu from afar. Immediately, an extremely obscure ripple spread out. It was very difficult to detect. Blackfish's face suddenly changed as he fought against the human experts. A sliver of blood oozed from the corner of his mouth as his body began to sway gently. His face paled. "Blackfish, what's wrong?" Ruijin immediately asked when he sensed Blackfish's abnormality. His face was filled with surprise. "It's poison. Using a top expert who's good at using poison to secretly poison me. He actually planted the poison in my body through space. What a brilliant method." Heiyu's tone was low. His face had already turned from white to black, and the blood at the corner of his mouth had also turned black. Genshin was surprised. He immediately arrived behind Blackfish and used the Saint artifact to protect himself. He directly channeled a strand of radiant Saint Force origin energy into Blackfish's body. Blackfish waved his hand and said, "It's fine. The poison is extremely powerful, but I have an extraordinary constitution. I can suppress it for a few days." Genshin also knew that now was not the time to cure Blackfish. He said, "Senior Blackfish, once we leave here, I'll use the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force to completely cure the poison in your body." Behind the crowd, the 5 old men who used the poison stood up at the same time. One of them said to the 5 old men from Mercenary City nearby, "We've already heavily injured one of them with the poison of Heaven's End. It's your turn now." The 5 old men of Mercenary City nodded. Without saying anything, the 5 of them immediately stood in a pentagram. Immediately, 5 tremendous presences radiated from their bodies as 5 pillars of light condensed from energy shot into the sky. The 5 old men of Mercenary City had reached the great perfection of the Holy Emperor many years ago. The 5 of them had already reached the peak of the realm and were infinitely close to the Holy Emperor. They were extremely powerful. The 5 of them had joined forces to unleash a supreme secret technique, causing a huge commotion that alarmed many people present. Immediately, many people cast their gazes towards them. The Grand Elder of the Protector clans from the Changyang Prefecture and Mercenary City stood in the distance the entire time. They did not take part in the battle for the Saint's fruit. Tian Jian gently sighed when he saw what the 5 old men were doing. He obviously knew what secret technique the 5 old men were using, but he was unable to stop them. He was filled with helplessness. At this moment, the presences from the 5 old men actually fused together, forming an even more terrifying presence. Even their energies had overlapped, giving off a strength that was enough to make the world tremble. Many Holy Emperor experts present felt their hearts tremble. The Holy Emperor. "This is a shocking presence that only the Holy Emperor possesses," someone cried out. The 5 old men of Mercenary City had used a secret technique to fuse their powers together, actually becoming an existence similar to the Holy Emperor. They had basically become an emperor through another method, which alarmed many people. The 5 old men of Mercenary City were enveloped by a layer of intense white light. Vast and terrifying energy pulsed around them. The 5 of them seemed to have come together with Mercenary City's Great Elder Tianjian. This time, they seemed to be using an extremely powerful ancient secret technique. Even with their great strength, they still need to spend such a long time to charge it up. An old holy emperor from an ancient clan whispered. He was extremely shocked inside. Mercenary City was actually hiding such unknown peak experts. At this moment, boundless energy rapidly condensed above the 5 elders of Mercenary City. In the end, it actually condensed into a figure completely condensed from energy. Its facial features were clear and lifelike, just like a real person. Mo Tianyin. That's Mo Tianyin, the greatest human expert in ancient times. Mo Tianyin. What kind of powerful ancient secret technique is this? It can actually condense the figure of the greatest human expert, Mo Tianyin. Countless people cried out. At that moment, even someone as powerful as the Holy Emperor struggled to remain calm because Mo Tianyin's fame was just too great. Even after 1,000,000 years, Mo Tianyin was still a legend that lived in the hearts of countless people. Chapter 1159. Mo Tianyin's projection seemed like a real person. He possessed an extremely domineering presence, which deeply shocked all the experts present. Under Mo Tianyin's tremendous presence, many holy emperors lost all thoughts of resisting. Ruijin, Honglian, Blackfish, and Genshin were also alarmed by the domineering presence. They all looked at Mo Tianyin's projection sternly. Mo Tianyin's projection had been created by the 5 founding members of Mercenary City through a supreme, secret technique. This secret technique had been left behind by Mo Tianyin in the past, and its power had already surpassed Saint Tier battle skills. However, the conditions for using the secret technique were extremely high. Only Saint Emperors could use it. The 5 old men of Mercenary City could only use the secret technique by combining their strength. Only then could they barely use the secret technique. The secret technique had been left behind for holy emperors, so its power was unquestionable. Suddenly, Mo Tianyin's projection moved. He took a step and the entire sky shook. The seemingly casual step was filled with unbelievable power. At that moment, space seemed to freeze and time seemed to stop. The surging black mist in the death nest fell silent. Mo Tianyin seemed to have become the only thing in the world. Mo Tianyin's step immediately caused a terrifying ripple in space. It seemed to form a sharp sword that extended towards Ruijin and the others. It moved extremely quickly. All the Holy Emperor experts stopped what they were doing. They could not help but be drawn over by Mo Tianyin. Mo Tianyin's seemingly simple step was filled with the truths of the world, which allowed him to use the power of the world. Ruijin, Blackfish, Honglian, and Genshin immediately felt like they were immobilized. They had been locked in place by invisible shackles. All they could do was watch as the sword-like ripple in space rapidly approached them. Suddenly, a powerful golden light shone from Ruijin. His body rapidly swelled as a layer of fine. Golden scales covered his entire body. He became half human and half dragon in a single moment, breaking free from his shackles with supreme strength. With a dragon's roar that shook the 9 heavens, he charged forward as a golden streak of light with the sacred dragon's sword. He fused with his sword and stabbed at the ripple in space with all his strength. The two silently collided. There was no great sound, only a violent tremor in space. It blurred the image there and distorted everyone's vision. Everyone's vision was affected. The ripple in space beneath Mo Tianyin's feet vanished. Ruijin had blocked it, but Ruijin did not fare well either. He was blown away, landing 1,000 meters away in an extremely horrible shape. The origin energy armor he wore had become much dimmer as well. With a resonant phoenix's cry, flames surged into the sky. Honglian had also forcefully broken free from her shackles. She turned into a huge phoenix and radiated with scorching white flames. She used the scorching godfire hairpin to attack Mo Tianyin's figure. Mo Tianyin was emotionless. He was not the real Mo Tianyin. He was only using a secret technique, a supreme secret technique that had surpassed Saint Tier battle skills. He extended a finger, and endless world force immediately gathered from outside the death nest. It actually condensed into a 5-meter-long finger in a single moment, shooting toward the scorching Godfire hairpin with unstoppable force. Boom! With a violent rumble, the scorching Godfire hairpin was actually blown away by Mo Tianyin's finger. The finger condensed from the energy of the world dispersed at the same time. Fright! A high-pitched phoenix cry rang out. Hong Lian, who had reverted to her original form, was protected by the Phoenix clan's inheritance treasure, the 9 refined divine fire feathers. She charged at Mo Tianyin alone with endless white flames. She enveloped Mo Tianyin's projection along with the 5 people who were hiding behind him, wanting to incinerate them. Mo Tianyin's shadow was gradually fading away. The power that it was emitting was also rapidly weakening. After all, this was not his real body. It was only a secret technique. Once its energy was exhausted, it would eventually vanish into thin air. Saint force circulated around the 5 old men of Mercenary City, temporarily protecting them from the flames. However, the 5 of them had already become rather pale. Exhaustion filled their faces. Arg! The 5 old men cried out at the same time. They poured all of their vital energies into Mo Tianyin's figure, causing it to condense once again. Under their control, Mo Tianyin's figure firmly struck out with a palm strike at Hong Lian. Bang! With a heavy sound, Hong Lian's huge phoenix figure shot through the air with endless white flames. She had been blown far away by Mo Tianyin's palm strike. Roar! A deafening dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens as a tremendous dragon's might basically enveloped the entire death nest. Rui Jin had completely reverted to his original form, becoming a 100-meter-long golden dragon. His scales shone with golden light as they flickered. Mo Tianyin did not move from where he was. He directly struck out with his palm at Rui Jin from 1,000 meters away. His hand suddenly expanded to several hundred meters in the air, falling down on Rui Jin from above. In the end, he caught the 100-meter-long golden dragon in his hand. Loud dragon's roars constantly rang out. Rui Jin was caught in Mo Tianyin's hand. He was currently struggling as hard as he could, causing Mo Tianyin's hand to constantly tremble. The 5 old men from Mercenary City gently trembled. Their faces had become pale and exhausted. The secret technique required them to expend their vital energies, so the longer they used it, the more vital energies would be drained from them. They were already old, so they could not maintain it for very long. He really is the Dragon King of the Dragon Clan. This golden dragon has not even reached Emperor, yet he already possesses such great battle prowess. It's not that our secret technique isn't powerful enough, but that the golden dragon has an origin energy treasure on him, the 5 old men said in a deep voice. The 5 elders of Mercenary City said in a deep voice. Their expressions were unsightly, and one of them shouted, "The golden divine dragon has already been trapped by the 5 of us. As for the other 2 magical beasts, one of them has been poisoned by the Heaven's Incense School's poison of heaven. As for the remaining divine phoenix, everyone quickly used a supreme secret technique to hold her back. Without the 3 of them, the saint's fruit is still ours." Many people became interested. Aside from the Chanyang Prefecture, the other 8 protector clans and a few ancient clans all sent out 1 or 2 experts to use secret techniques to keep Hong Lian busy. Unlike before, they did not use offensive secret techniques this time. Instead, they used supportive secret techniques to trap her. This was because all of them knew that Rui Jin and the others were protected by origin energy armor. No matter how powerful the attacks were, they would not be able to harm them. The people from the Chanyang Prefecture did not interfere. Once they did, they would become everyone's enemy. "Let's see if you have the ability to keep me busy," the blazing phoenix said. The flaming godly phoenix spoke in human language. Its eyes had turned completely red, and raging flames danced within them. "Jianqin, enter the artifact space." Black Fish said to Jianqin. His face had already become pitch black, and black blood constantly flowed from the corner of his mouth. The poison was even more powerful than he had imagined. At this moment, the ground began to shake violently. The entire death nest seemed to shake violently, causing everyone to lose their footing. Soon after, an extremely dense, red mist appeared from the depths of the death nest. It seemed to be completely condensed from blood. Wherever it passed, the grudges and grievances would all retreat in fear. Baleful Een Force. It's the baleful Een Force of the Blood Sword sect. Chapter 1160. Cries rang out from the surroundings. Disbelief filled many people's faces, especially the people from the Protector clans. They were filled with shock. The records of the Protector clans clearly recorded everything that happened in the Death Nest. The information had been left behind by countless generations of seniors who had explored the Death Nest time and time again. It could be said that they had recorded everything that happened in the Death Nest. However, there was no mention of the existence of baleful Een Force in the Death Nest. There was only endless grudges and Een Chi. Baleful Een Force is a secret technique unique to the Blood Sword sect, one of the 3 great assassin organizations on the continent. Are there experts from the Blood Sword sect cultivating here? Impossible. I've met experts from the Blood Sword sect before. The baleful Een Force on them is completely different from the baleful Een Force here. Comparing the baleful Een energy, the baleful Een energy here is many times stronger than the baleful Een energy in their bodies. What a terrifying baleful Een Chi. Despite being so far away, my Yuan spirit is actually affected. It's like it's going to be sucked out by the baleful Een Chi. The expressions of all the experts from the Holy Emperor changed. They all stared at the extremely dense, blood-red mist in shock. Before the baleful Een Force had even approached them, their souls had already been affected, which left them extremely shocked. Tianjin became extremely stern as well. He stared at the baleful Een Force with shining eyes and growled, "What powerful baleful Een Force! It's actually several hundred times more powerful than Houston's baleful Een Force. Just how is this baleful Een Force produced? If it's being purposefully emitted by someone, that person's strength is just far too terrifying." Jianqin also stared at the baleful Een Force. He thought, "Don't tell me Uncle Xiao is cultivating here. Has he already become the Holy Emperor?" Bang! 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 Suddenly, a muffled sound rang out from the depths of the death nest, causing the ground to tremble. A huge demonic figure that was 100 meters tall gradually emerged from the clump of extremely dense, baleful Een Chi. All the human Holy Emperor experts in the death nest were stunned when they saw the true appearance of this demonic figure. It was actually a huge skeleton that was over 100 meters tall. It was completely red, as if it had been bathed in blood. Standing in the baleful Een Chi, it seemed to fuse with the baleful Een Chi. The baleful Een Chi is coming from the skeleton. A cry of surprise came from the crowd. Hearing this, everyone immediately looked carefully. Sure enough, they found that every bone of the giant skeleton was emitting a very dense, baleful Een Chi. The source of the baleful Een Chi in the death nest was actually a huge skeleton that had appeared out of nowhere. This greatly surprised many people. This skeleton is formed from the corpses of countless saint emperors. Every single bone on it was formed from the corpses of experts who were buried here in the past, Jianqin explained. Another person who had seen Bo Yu cried out. The contents deeply shocked all the saint kings present. How is this possible? How can the corpses of experts that were buried here by Mo Tianyun form such a huge skeleton? Has someone done something to the death nest, which is why such a huge skeleton has appeared? In the past, our Holy Emperor ancestors of the 10 Protector clans explored the death nest many times, but they rarely found the corpses of Holy Emperor experts. Many of the corpses were missing. We thought they had been refined by Mo Tianyun's formation, but it looks like the corpses of the Holy Emperor experts have all been hidden away. Just who would hide the corpses of the Holy Emperor experts? Is it Mo Tianyun? In the past, our ancestors were perplexed by Mo Tianyun's decision to create a place like this, but it looks like Mo Tianyun did not create the death nest just for the saint's fruit. There are other secrets that we do not know about. Various discussions rang out in the surroundings. The 10 protector clans and a few ancient clans all knew a lot about the secrets of the death nest. Now that they shared all the information they knew, coupled with the guesses of a few people, many people immediately connected the dots. The appearance of the huge skeleton became the focus of everyone's attention for a moment, causing the battle to come to a halt. Even more people shifted their attention to the huge skeleton. At this moment, the 100-meter-tall, blood-red skeleton moved. It extended one of its bony arms, and immediately, endless baleful force radiated from the bony arms. It formed a dense, red mist that surged toward everyone. Before the red, baleful force had even approached them, all the Holy Emperor experts felt their heads spin. Their souls ached. And at that moment, all of them felt like they had lost control of their souls. They wanted to break free from their heads and be absorbed by the red, baleful force. All the Holy Emperor experts were extremely shocked. The baleful force was just too terrifying. Even with their powerful souls, they were unable to endure it. None of the Holy Emperor experts dared to stay any longer. They quickly retreated as if they had seen a ghost. All of them were filled with fear toward the baleful force. Genshin's soul was affected just like the Holy Emperor experts. However, a powerful azure and violet light erupted from his sea of consciousness. The sword spirits had used their own powers to protect Genshin's soul. Pearls hovered above Honglian and Blackfish's heads. They shone with a hazy light to protect their souls, preventing them from being affected by the baleful force. The 5 old men from Mercenary City stopped using their secret techniques as well. They retreated with everyone else in exhaustion to avoid the incoming baleful force. It's a pity that maintaining this secret technique consumes far too much energy. We don't have the energy to do anything else. Otherwise, we could have tried using the secret technique to shatter that skeleton, an old man said gloomily with some helplessness and pity. Without the support of the 5 of them, Mo Tianyun's image disappeared, and the trapped Rui Jin regained his freedom. Golden light flickered around the 100-meter-long golden divine dragon. He raised his head and let out a thunderous dragon's roar. His voice was filled with fury. Just as he was about to charge up and deal with the 5 elders of Mercenary City, he suddenly froze. He had also discovered the changes outside. Chapter 1161. The baleful force that filled the air surged over and rapidly drifted towards everyone. Very soon, it covered the place where they had been standing before. Rui Jin had just broken free. Before he could flee, the baleful force was already extremely close to him. It was less than 100 meters away, and this distance was rapidly shrinking. Rui Jin's face suddenly changed. Before the baleful force had even entered his soul, he felt an intense stabbing pain, accompanied by a strong sense of dizziness. The baleful force was so powerful that even Rui Jin struggled to endure it. Rui Jin became extremely stern as shock filled his heart. He was a golden divine dragon, the king of the dragon clan. He possessed a unique advantage. Both his body and soul were extremely powerful. The baleful force had not even gotten close to him yet, but it had already affected his soul so greatly. He found this unbelievable. The origin energy orb appeared above Rui Jin's head. It shone with a hazy light that enveloped his body, protecting his soul. With the assistance of the origin energy orb, the discomfort from Rui Jin's soul immediately vanished. The origin energy orb was an origin energy treasure that specialized in blocking everything that targeted the soul. Although the baleful Een force was very powerful, it was clearly unable to break through the defenses of the origin energy orb. Ruijin's eyes flickered with golden light as he stared at the huge skeleton hidden in the baleful Een force for a while. Afterward, he quickly arrived before Genshin and stood with Honglian and Blackfish. "What's up with this skeleton?" Ruijin growled. He had been trapped in Mo Tianyun's hand earlier, so he was isolated from the outside world. He had no idea what had happened outside. It suddenly appeared. "No one knows what's going on, but it's an enemy, not a friend," Honglian said with a heavy voice. "The baleful Een force is very terrifying. No human expert can endure it. Once they come in contact with it, their souls will be wiped out. Let's leave this place quickly before anyone notices the saint's fruit." "I suddenly feel like the death nest isn't as simple as it seems," Blackfish said with a frown. He was stern. All the human experts quickly retreated, distancing themselves from the baleful Een force. The terror of the baleful Een force had frightened many of them out of their wits. Very few of them cared about the saint's fruit anymore. "Xiang'er, we can't stay here for long. Let's leave quickly." Changyang Qinyin suddenly arrived beside Genshin. He called out to him in an extremely friendly manner, filled with concern. Genshin frowned slightly as an undetectable cold light flashed through his eyes. He ignored Changyang Qinyin, directly treating him like he was nothing. Changyang Qinyin had used the fact that he had removed the ancient secret technique to plant another ancient secret technique in Huang Wan's soul, which made Genshin extremely furious. He vaguely began to treat Changyang Qinyin as an enemy. "Let's go!" Ruijin growled before pulling Genshin away by the arm. The baleful Een force permeated the area very quickly, but it was still slower than the flight of the Holy Emperor. The Holy Emperor experts immediately pulled away from the baleful Een force with their retreat. They were about to leave the third zone. At this moment, the blood-red skeleton roared at the sky. There was no sound, but a visible ripple rippled through the surroundings. Every single bone on its body surged with endless baleful Een force, causing the blood-red mist to become viscous, as if it had turned into a sea of blood. Endless baleful Een force flowed into the ground, causing the blood-red ground to become even redder. At the same time, a faint, red light began to radiate from the ground. The formation on the third floor of the Death Nest was originally only used to isolate the baleful Een Chi between the second and third floors. It could not stop people from entering or leaving. But at that moment, the formation suddenly began to operate. It formed a layer of faint, red mist that enveloped the third floor, preventing the human experts from leaving. How is this possible? The skeleton can actually control the formations here. Weren't these formations cast down by Mo Tianyun in the past? How does it know how to control them? Looks like the skeleton has already gained sentience. It's not simple at all. It's using the baleful Een force to activate the formations, or it's using the formations to allow the baleful Een force to have other wondrous effects. We can't leave. Let's all work together to break through the formations. Immediately, many Holy Emperor experts struck out at the same time, launching powerful attacks at the formations. However, the formations had been cast down by Mo Tianyun in the past. Even though countless years had passed since then, their power had not decreased at all. So how could a group of Holy Emperor break through them? No matter how much force they used, they were unable to make the formations tremble at all. Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish struck out as well. They used their origin energy treasures to attack the formations at the same time, but all they could do was make the formations shake. They could not break through them. The ground continued to tremble as the blood-red skeleton approached them step by step. Its footsteps were like mountains, and every step it took caused the ground to tremble violently. A dense, baleful aura surged forward, getting closer and closer to them. All the human experts became frantic. The baleful Een force was like the scythe of the god of death to them. It could ignore the defenses of Saint Force and specifically attack the souls of people. Even though many of them had grasped ancient secret techniques, they could not think of any way to resist the baleful Een Force. Could it be that all of us are going to die here today? Someone released a howl of grief, regretting entering this place. God damn it! How did this skeleton appear? Why hasn't it appeared in all these years? Why did it suddenly appear when Holy Emperor were rare? The experts of the Protector clans were confused. They were filled with questions. The skeleton's appearance had become a mystery to all of them. Jianqin became extremely stern as well. He stared at the baleful Een Force up ahead and said, "These human experts can't all die here. The Tianyuan continent can't bear such a loss. Senior Ruijin, Senior Honglian, and Senior Blackfish, may I ask if you can destroy this skeleton? The baleful Een Force has no effect on us." "The three of us can try," said Ruijin. Afterwards, he, Honglian, and Heiyu attacked the blood-red skeleton together. However, the skeleton's strength exceeded everyone's expectations. The powerful attacks from the origin energy weapons of Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu only left behind shallow marks on the skeleton. The attacks that were powerful enough to injure the Holy Emperor failed to break a single bone. At this moment, there was a flash of red light. A huge bone club had appeared in the skeleton's hand at some point in time, and it directly swept toward Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu. Bang! 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 With three heavy sounds, Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu were all blown away by the skeleton's club. Their origin energy armor dimmed. This scene stunned all the experts present. Their mouths were wide open, and their faces were filled with disbelief. They knew the strength of Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu extremely well. They were supreme experts who could defeat the Holy Emperor, yet they could not even withstand a single strike from the skeleton. It surpassed the Holy Emperor. This skeleton's strength has reached the level of the four ancient sovereigns. A great elder of a Protector clan cried out. His voice trembled in fear.